Chapter 1144. That morning, Hai Rui decided that the Ant Queen 2 would officially begin filming on the 1st of the following month. In reality, it was only a few days later. As the antagonist, Mo Ting naturally had to make preparations. But because Hai Rui was in a stable state and Feng Yu and Lu Che were doing well, Mo Ting had time to spare. No one thought that the big boss would lose face by acting. After all, everyone in Beijing knew that Mo Ting was only willing to appear on screen because of Tongning. This wife-doting demon, as long as Tongning wanted something, there was nothing he wouldn't do, so acting in a film wasn't a big deal. The media followed up on Hai Rui's announcement and conducted interviews with all the actors involved. Even Old Long was prepared to give it his all. After all, who would dare to not treat Tongning's film well? As Su Yuran lay in her bedroom and watched the news, she turned to look at Nangong Quan. Tongning is quite good at making films. A good film is the result of a team's hard work. It's not right to put all the credit on Tongning alone. But I can't deny that Tongning has perseverance, Nangong Quan said like he was looking at a piece of gossip. The Ant Queen's first film had such a difficult environment, yet she managed to produce it. She's indeed very serious. Nangong Quan, I really want to know if you feel unsettled by President Mo's achievements. Mo Ting relied on himself to get where he is today. Nangong Quan knew this better than anyone. His talent isn't something that anyone can compare to. After hearing this, Su Yuran suddenly felt that the relationship between him and Mo Ting was like that between two heroes, and they appreciated each other. Nangong Quan admired Mo Ting, and Mo Ting naturally didn't dislike Nangong Quan. Actually, whether you're friends or competitors, the sparks between the two of you are bound to be very interesting. Stop talking. Take your medicine first. Nangong Quan turned off the noisy TV and placed the medicine in front of Su Yuran. If you want little eggshell to return to her room before school ends, you need to listen to me. Su Yuran's face turned red and she didn't know what to say. This man obviously looked like a gentleman, but at times like this he was extremely domineering. It was almost too much for her. Yuran, hurry up. Okay, I understand. Su Yuran nodded her head, lay down on the bed and fell asleep. Of course, Nangong Quan did not make things difficult for her. After she fell asleep, he carried her back to his room. As for the task of picking up the three kids, he naturally left it to him. However, his actions completely infuriated old man Nangong. It was one thing that Nangong Quan didn't hold a grudge against him, and he wouldn't actually lay a hand on his grandson. But Nangong Quan actually picked the two kids up from school? Could it be that he had forgotten everything that had happened to the Nangong family? Let's go. The old man said to the driver angrily. Young Master Nangong, this is too disappointing. The driver echoed, Old mister, don't be too angry. If we don't give him a warning, he seems to have forgotten who he is. After saying that, Elder Nangong took out his phone and dialed a familiar number. He also instructed the person on a few things. Nangong Quan had no idea that Elder Nangong would be so disgusted by his act of sending the two kids to school for Su Yuran. 3 days later, the Ant Queen 2 held its opening ceremony. It wasn't as difficult as it was during the filming of the Ant Queen 1. Now Tongning could easily get her hands on any resources she wanted. But she still treasured her actors and actresses. During the opening ceremony, Old Long was dressed in a white shirt, but it couldn't hide his perfect figure. Standing in the middle of the stage were a few new actors, while Tongning was seated on the left. Mo Ting had no time to attend the opening ceremony. A large number of fans sent their blessings to the Ant Queen 2. Everyone wanted Tongning to finish filming in one day. That day, Elder Nangong attended a photo shoot with the production crew. His surname was Naozeng. After putting on some makeup, he made himself look 10 years younger and pretended that he had been in the US for many years in the field of explosives. No one discovered his identity as an explosives technician. Everyone treated Elder Nangong like he was a family member. Meanwhile, Elder Nangong looked at the main cast on stage and revealed a friendly smile. All he was waiting for was an opportunity. Even though he couldn't contain his excitement and wanted to blow up the entire set, for the sake of the Ant Queen 2, Hai Rui invested a lot of effort and money. They even built a base for the Ant Queen 2 and a few other buildings. Most of the Ant Queen 2's filming would take place here. Mo Ting was the last to enter the set. His scenes were mostly in the second half of the film, while he only needed to appear in the first half of the film. So if Elder Nangong wanted to wait for this opportunity, he would need to stay on set for quite some time. Even so, Elder Nangong did not forget to remind his grandson of his identity. So during this period of time, he frequently ordered people to place a photo of Nangong Quan's parents in Nangong Quan's car to remind him of the cause of his parents' death. Sometimes, he would even spray graffiti on Nangong Quan's car. In short, he wanted his grandson to remember everything that Nangong Quan had forgotten. Have you found out who did it? Su Yuran noticed that Nangong Quan had been quiet lately because of the photo, so she couldn't help but ask, "Why did these photos suddenly appear in my car?" Nangong Quan put away the photo and replied, "It's probably because someone was bored. Who would play a prank like this? I refuse to believe that the person behind this has no ulterior motives. This is a reminder." Nangong Quan looked down at the photo of his parents and replied, "It's a reminder for me not to forget about my blood feud. But Qiu Jin is already dead. I will find out who did it." "Don't worry," Nangong Quan comforted. "As long as you and Little Eggshell are safe, leave everything else to me." "I'm just worried about you," Su Yuran comforted. Su Yuran held onto Nangong Quan's hand and said, "It wasn't easy for you to forget everything." Nangong Quan did not say a word, because just like Su Yuran said, it wasn't easy for him to forget everything. He didn't want to remember everything again. Chapter 1145. Because of this, Nangong Quan investigated the person that placed the photo in his car. But, because the person was extremely cautious, he did not find any clues. Elder Nangong was, after all, an experienced man. So when he did something like this, he naturally didn't leave any evidence behind. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to live up to his reputation. Little brat, all he does is indulge in women, and he even sent someone to investigate me. What an ingrate. Elder Nangong was even more displeased with Nangong Quan. But even though he was displeased, he was still related to Nangong Quan. So he couldn't really do anything to the only descendant of the Nangong family. As for Su Yuran, he had already investigated her. Although her background wasn't good enough for Nangong Quan, she claimed that she came from the military and was skilled. Thinking about the genes of his future great-grandchildren, he reluctantly agreed to let the two of them get together. But Elder Nangong was not happy that Su Yuran was working for the Mo family. But he wasn't in a rush. After the explosion was completed, he would return to the Nangong family and teach his useless grandson a lesson. Over the past few days, the Ant Queen 2 had already begun filming. But because the early stages of filming were mainly non-acting, Elder Nangong spent his time on the set of the Ant Queen 2. He would either sneak a peek at the actors' scripts or sneak a peek at Old Long and the others. "I never thought that a little brat would come up with something so decent. She's definitely better than the rascal at home. Umph." The script was well written. But of course, Elder Nangong could only see part of it. After all, opportunities like this were hard to come by. Even if they didn't get the chance to do the explosion and the script was leaked, Hai Rui would still suffer for a while. Tongning visited the set frequently, because she wanted to confirm the acting skills of the young actors. Especially Luo Sheng, the amateur that she pulled out from the group. After so much training, he was actually able to act well with Old Long. After seeing this, Tongning was quite pleased. But there was another reason why she visited the set frequently. She wanted to encourage the lead actors. Perhaps there wasn't a single person in Beijing that didn't know how much she valued the Ant Queen 2. "All you do is play basketball all day. You have no idea what I need." This scene was between Luo Sheng and Old Dragon. The two were father and son, but also teacher and student. Luo Sheng's character, Little Qiu, was naturally rebellious. In fact, he even went down the wrong path and helped the villain. Old Long was an honest physical education teacher. In fact, he had another identity, which was a retired undercover agent. "Anyway, don't flirt with the girls in class right under my nose. A student should behave like a student. Since we're out on an outing, we need to relax." "What's wrong with me being friends with a female classmate?" With a cigarette dangling from Luo Sheng's mouth, he looked at his father in disdain. Even the way you stand is so annoying. If you have the guts, go to school and sue me. The old dragon was so enraged that he gave Luo Sheng a good beating. In a fit of anger, Luo Sheng left the group in a fit of rage. However, he had no idea that he had stumbled into a cave in his haste. The story of the Ant Queen 2 began. There was a lot of tension between the father and son, and the expression on Luo Sheng's face when he entered the mutated ant's cave was full of shock and fear. The scene froze here. Cut. Good, let's get ready for the next scene, Miss Chiao said as she stood up. As she spotted Tang Ning standing not too far away, she ran over excitedly and said, "Out of all the new actors, Luo Sheng is the most hardworking. I'm guessing he's afraid that he'll embarrass you. He's always been good at seizing opportunities, so I'm not surprised at all that he has such an effect. But the other newcomers all have their own difficulties. It's hard to explain in a few words. It's best if you find an opportunity to communicate with them." After hearing this, Tang Ning nodded her head. Okay. The others weren't lazy either, but they were always lacking something. Either they were talented, or they hadn't been pressured like Luo Sheng. Of course, Mo Ting still hadn't joined the set yet because his scenes would be focused on filming. But because of this, Elder Nangong ended up staying on set for a good few months at a time. In the following days, Elder Nangong stopped sending people to place photos in Nangong Quan's car. He had no time to take care of his grandson, so he had to keep an eye out for opportunities on set. But Nangong Quan did not give up on his search for the person who placed the photos. Over the past few days, the Su family had reached the end of their road. Father Su couldn't find any funds, so he couldn't turn the Su family around. Meanwhile, Su Yuren's auntie wasn't doing too well either. Nangong Quan had promised to hire a team of lawyers to deal with the situation, and he did just that. By now, Su Yuren's auntie's reputation was completely ruined because she seduced her brother-in-law and tried to kick her sister out of the family. On top of that, she was in charge of divorce cases. She was an unscrupulous scumbag. Because of this, Father Su contacted Su Yuran and Mother Su multiple times to avoid his debts, but they ignored him. Left with no choice, Father Su had no choice but to pawn the Su family home. Otherwise, he would have no way out. As soon as Nangong Quan heard that the Su family was going to auction off the property, he naturally wanted to buy it. At least, he felt that Su Yuran and Mother Su would love it. He was just wondering what gift to give Su Yuran, but now he had one. But because he found out that Nangong Quan was the buyer, Father Su went straight to Springfall and begged Nangong Quan to see Su Yuran and Mother Su. Although Nangong Quan didn't want to see the scumbag, he did not make the decision himself. Instead, he personally gave Su Yuran a phone call. "Mr. Su is currently at my agency. Would you like to see him? Let's meet outside. I'm afraid he'll dirty your territory." Su Yuran replied. "Dress yourself up before you come out to see him," Nangong Quan cautiously reminded. At least, he needed Su Yuran to act like a rich woman that had married into a rich family. That way, Father Su would be devastated. Su Yuran nodded her head. Not only did she dress herself up, she also dressed up Mother Su. They agreed to meet at a place not far from Springfall because it was the safest way. Papa Su would never have imagined that after leaving him, the mother and daughter were living like fish in water. They were covered in jewels and jewels, as if they had become the wives of nobles. "Why did you want to see us? Speak." After arriving at the cafe, Su Yuran said coldly to Father Su, "Why isn't my good auntie here?" "Yuran, I'm at my wit's end. Please save me," Father Su said as he knelt in front of Mother Su. Papa Su knelt in front of Mama Su and begged, "I know you have money now. You can save Daddy." "Save you? Why should I?" Chapter 1146. Look, you've married into a rich family and you don't have to worry about food and clothes, but I don't even have a place to sleep. Father Su cried. "Yuran, I've wronged you and your mother in the past, but you can't just stand by and watch me die. You're allowed to wrong us, but we can't wrong you?" Su Yuran's eyes turned red. "Dad, this is the last time I'm going to call you Dad." Afterwards, she pulled out a few $100s from her wallet and placed it in front of Father Su. "This is my last mercy." After speaking, Su Yuran turned her head and looked elsewhere. Seeing that his daughter's request was useless, Father Su turned to Mother Su and begged, "Wifey, wifey, save me. Don't forget, we've already signed our divorce papers," Mother Su said realistically. Mother Su told Father Su very realistically, "So my suggestion is that you look for my sister. After all, you guys have been together for so many years. She will definitely save you. Wifey, don't look for me or Yuran again. I'd rather die than help you. So even if you die on your knees in front of me, it's useless." Mother Su suddenly yelled. "Indeed, Yuran has a good boyfriend, but it has nothing to do with you. Do you remember how you've treated Yuran all these years?" Father Su was stunned as he knelt in front of the mother and daughter helplessly. "You guys are my only hope. When you were being intimate with that slut in front of me, why wasn't I your only hope? When you called that slut and kicked me over and over again, why didn't you say that I was your only hope? If you still had a bit of conscience, you wouldn't have ended up like this today. Hope? That's something that no longer exists between us." After hearing this, Su Yuran suddenly regretted taking out a few $100s. She had never seen her mother explode in anger, nor had she ever heard her cry out for help. What right did this jerk have to receive help from others? "Yuran, wifey, if you don't help me, I'm going to die." Father Su shamelessly threatened to kill himself. But at this time, Nangong Quan walked into the cafe dressed in a smart suit and approached the mother and daughter. "Have you come to an agreement?" Su Yuran pointed at Father Su with her chin and humphed. He said, "Without us he would die." From Su Yuran's eyes, Nangong Quan could tell that she couldn't bear to watch. So he patted her on the shoulder and comforted. "Take Auntie out first. I have something to say to Mr. Su." Su Yuran glanced at Father Su and nodded her head. "I'll leave it to you then." After speaking, Su Yuran pushed Mother Su out of the cafe. As soon as the mother and daughter left, Nangong Quan sat down in front of Father Su. "I know Yuran is very kind, but I'm not. Mr. Su, I'm sure you've heard that I killed someone in the US." Nangong Quan deliberately used this incident to threaten Father Su. When Papa Su heard this, his palms began to sweat. "So paying off your debt is my bottom line. As for you asking for millions or even tens of millions, are you willing to live the rest of your life without worries? I'm sorry, that's not possible. I'm only doing this for Yuran's sake. If you continue to pester Yuran and her mother, you can forget about anything else. What do you think, Mr. Su? But what am I going to rely on in the future?" Father Su still wanted to live a good life. "That's up to you. Whether you want to work or beg, it's up to you." After speaking, Nangong Quan stood up without saying another word to Father Su. This jerk didn't even deserve to be called a human. All Tongning hoped was that from now on, he would distance himself from Su Yuran and her mother. Father Su sat on the floor dispiritedly, but there was nothing he could do. At least, Nangong Quan had paid off his debt for him, so he no longer had to hide. As for how he was going to live from now on, he would have to look for his old mistress. At the very least, she was a lawyer. But he had no idea that Su Yuran's auntie had locked herself up at home for 3 days straight. It was simple. She was too ashamed to do anything. She seduced her brother-in-law and abused her sister. She did all of the disgusting things she did. Of course, the bugs had to stick together to prevent them from harming others. Afterwards, even though Father Su's matter was resolved, Su Yuran was not happy. Seeing that she did not say a word after returning home, Nangong Quan began to tell her about his past. "When I was in my teens, my family was turned upside down and my parents passed away. To protect my life, I had no choice but to leave my hometown and go to the US. I worked in a poor area on my own as an apprentice in a store. Then I accidentally beat a local tyrant to death. As soon as I went to prison, I felt like my life was going to end like this. The first 30 years of my life were a blur. It wasn't until little Eggshell was born that I saw myself clearly. I wanted to raise this child well, and she was my only motivation to live. So Yuran, you're much luckier than me. At least, Auntie treats you wholeheartedly." After hearing Nangong Quan's words, Su Yuran suddenly hugged him from behind. "Now that you're saying this, I'm starting to blame the Mo family. That's why sometimes, I admire you for being able to let go of your hatred. That's because I believe that no one else can dictate their own fate. If you want to live a good life, then you need to work hard. There's no point blaming anyone else. The Mo family didn't do anything wrong, even if they destroyed my family. Don't say any more. Su Yuran hugged him tighter. Don't say any more. My heart hurts. From now on you won't just have little eggshell, you'll also have me. We'll both be by your side. Nangong Quan honestly revealed the dark side of his life. He even included the part where he went to prison. He wanted Su Yuran to understand everything about him. Su Yuran admired Nangong Quan's breadth of mind. Because of this, she began to understand and cherish Nangong Quan even more. I will definitely help you protect little eggshell, and make sure she grows up healthy and happy. In that case, you need to help her have a happy family first. Nangong Quan said with a deeper meaning. Yuran, marry me. After we get married, we can slowly fall in love. I can make up for everything that you're missing. But I'm almost 40 years old. Can you understand the psychological crisis of an old man? But what if I change my mind? If one day, you feel like I'm not treating you well and want to leave, you can leave at any time. I won't force you, Nangong Quan promised. But I won't give you the chance to regret. Chapter 1147. In that case, I'll take a gamble. Su Yuran replied decisively. Gamble? Su Yuran used such a reckless word. I definitely won't let you lose, Nangong Quan promised. My promise to you will always be valid. Su Yuran buried her head in Nangong Quan's arms as he hugged her tightly. Although he looked tough on the outside, his heart was burning with passion. I'm sorry, I don't have the patience to wait any longer. I want to marry you right now. As soon as their marriage was decided, Su Yuran personally arrived at Hyatt Regency the next day to resign from Tongning. Although Nangong Quan didn't care, she cared a lot. When she thought about Nangong Quan's lonely life, she couldn't help but blame the Mo family. So she couldn't continue working for Tongning. Can I ask why? Tongning asked even though she already knew the answer. In reality, she wanted to know how far their relationship had progressed. But because it wasn't easy to find a good person like Su Yuran, she naturally cared a little more about her. If Miss Tang is worried about the kids' safety, I can recommend my friend. I'm sure she can do the job. But Tongning shook her head and smiled. I'm not asking this because I'm worried about the kids. I'm simply concerned about you. Yuran, I want you to be happy. Su Yuran nodded her head. Actually, this had nothing to do with Tongning and Mo Ting. The couple's character and integrity were 1 in 100, so there was no need for her to take it to heart. It's because I'm getting married, Su Yuran replied. I'm getting married to Nangong Quan. He's been on his own for so many years. I want to be by his side, Su Yuran said with a happy smile. We are both lonely people. Since that's the case, I wish you both the best, Tongning said as she hugged Su Yuran. Tongning stretched out her arms and gave Su Yuran a hug. From now on you'll only be giving little eggshell. My 2 rascals are going to be jealous. Thank you, Miss Tang. Tongning shook her head. There's no need to thank me. It's fate that we met. Su Yuran said her goodbyes to the 2 babies and left Hyatt Regency out of respect. Although Tongning felt it was a pity, she could sense that Nangong Quan truly needed Su Yuran. After all, both of them needed warmth. That night, Mo Ting returned home and Tongning told him about what had happened. When the time comes, send him a congratulatory gift, even though Nangong Quan might not necessarily want it. Mo Ting held on to his 2 sons as he listened to his wife. When the time comes, get Lu Che to make arrangements. By the way, I will be joining the crew tomorrow. I know. Daddy, Big Sis doesn't want us anymore, Mo Zishi said with a pout. Of course, Mo Zichin didn't say much, nor did he express his displeasure. After all, it wasn't like he could make the decision. It's not that Big Sis doesn't want to abandon you. Big Sis also has the right to be happy, Tongning comforted her sons. Mommy will carry you, okay? Dad has to film tomorrow and it will be very tiring. Let him have a good rest. Mo Zishi looked at his brother, and then at his father. He then slid out of Mo Ting's arms and led his brother to the playroom. After the 2 rascals left, Mo Ting wrapped his arms around Tongning and placed a kiss on her forehead. The 2 rascals are very sensible. Of course, don't you know who taught them that? Okay, I'm going to go wash up. I'll be joining the crew tomorrow morning. Tongning nodded her head and planted a kiss on Mo Ting's lips. My villain, I'm looking forward to your performance. Mo Ting patted her on the head. Even though she was already 30 years old, he still treated her like the young and inexperienced woman from the past. Afterwards, Tongning went to take care of Yin Er. This was the tacit understanding between the couple. As soon as they heard that Mo Ting was joining the crew, the staff on set of the Ant Queen 2 cheered. It wasn't common to see a big boss filming a film. Yet this man's acting was outstanding. If it wasn't for Tongning, they would never have known that President Mo's acting skills were so outstanding. Apart from the staff who wanted to catch a glimpse of Mo Ting, the actors were also extremely excited. For example, Mo Ting's previous work, whether it was Emperor in ancient costume, with Tongning or the Ant Queen one, he had always amazed everyone. When on Earth did he hone his acting skills? No one could get an answer. Early in the morning, the crew prepared to hold a welcome party for Mo Ting. But Mo Ting didn't like it this way. He simply told everyone to focus on what they needed to focus on. Everyone thought that big bosses liked to suck up to others. But after joining the crew, Mo Ting was merely an actor. So he had higher expectations for the people around him. As a result, Luo Sheng and Mo Ting had their first scene together. For Luo Sheng, this was a pleasant surprise. When it came to Mo Ting, apart from respect, he was also a little timid. Whenever he saw Mo Ting, he would feel nervous and afraid. As a result, Luo Sheng failed multiple times in his first scene. In the Ant Queen 2, Xiaoqiu greatly admired Mo Ting. He also wanted to break free from his father's control and become a person that could do whatever he wanted. So in this scene with Mo Ting, he needed to be obedient. As the couple stood in a dark tunnel, Mo Ting's character, Mengsun, demanded that Xiaoqiu learn how to resist. But Xiaoqiu was very timid, so Mengsun continued to provoke him. Hit me. Hit me hard. Pretend that I'm your father. Take out all the pain you've suffered on me. As soon as Mo Ting got into character, he went from a respectable CEO to a gangster-like hooligan. His entire body emitted an unbearable sense of danger. Just from looking at his eyes, one could feel a sense of eeriness and fear. Huh. Luo Sheng, you don't look too good, Xiao Man said as she helped him up. Don't be nervous. I'm sorry, director, please give me some time. Mo Ting was too powerful for Luo Sheng to handle. Mo Ting noticed Luo Sheng's state, so after he finished touching up his makeup, Mo Ting approached him and asked, do you know what the highest level of acting is? Transcendent. After hearing this, Mo Ting shook his head. Where can I find perfection? It's simple. You need to live like this person. Only when you become Xiaoqiu will you no longer be acting. Whether it's me, Tongning, Lin Sheng or Bei Chendong, as soon as you get into character, you will become that person and no longer be yourself. Chapter 1148. Let me show you a demonstration. I will now act as Xiaoqiu. Mo Ting said to Luo Sheng. In that case, do you need someone to help you? Mo Ting shook his head as he stood up and walked over to a sandbag. At this time, Old Long spoke up for Mo Ting. Hit me hard. Mo Ting immediately put on a submissive expression as he raised his hand and walked over to the sandbag. As if it was someone he was acting with, he gave it a probing punch. Hit him hard. Did you not eat? The old dragon cooperated again. As Mo Ting sobbed, he stretched out his fists. As he cried, he vented his emotions. Unknowingly, his fists became heavier and heavier, until everyone heard a loud cry of relief. At that moment, the entire world fell silent. From the moment Mo Ting's emotions were built up to the moment he exploded, it only took a few seconds for him to go from weak to defiant. In fact, the pain and grievance he felt came from the bottom of his heart. After seeing this, Luo Sheng was shocked. The other minor actors were also shocked. What was acting? On his first day, Mo Ting had already given them a shocking lesson. Because of this, the production crew couldn't help but be impressed. Because of this, the production crew were reminded of how Tongning had previously tried her best to bring her emotions into her scenes. It was almost like the person she was playing wasn't her, but was herself. Old Long stood to the side with a smile. It seemed Mo Ting had once again locked onto this year's Fei Tian Awards for Best Actor. The couple were born to be in the entertainment industry. Not too far away, Elder Nangong watched quietly as everything happened on set. He had a thoughtful smile on his face. After waiting for so long, his efforts were finally not in vain. Of course, at the moment, most of the scenes were non-acting and the most shocking scenes had yet to happen. So the explosives technician was still in charge of other projects. This was requested by Elder Nangong. He claimed that he liked to be on set throughout the entire process because that way, he could better understand the film. But since Mo Ting was already on set, it seemed his death wasn't too far away. Because of Mo Ting's arrival, the entire production crew became more serious and energetic. Most importantly, the other minor actors also quickly got into character. After all, they learned a lot from Mo Ting. I really admire President Mo. With his status, he is just like any other actor. He eats and lives with us and doesn't receive any special treatment. That's why he's able to sit on the big boss's seat. Tongning is the same. The two of them seem to be serious about everything they do. To live a fulfilling life every day, you're really amazing. After a day of filming, Tongning personally drove over to the set to pick up President Mo from work. The people on set couldn't help but tease. Miss Tang, you are way too punctual. Can't you let President Mo stay on set a little longer? Tongning also laughed. I've let you guys look at it all day. It's time for me to look at it too, right? I'm lovesick. They're showing off their affection. Mo Ting did not have the time to chat. He quickly changed his clothes and transformed back into his usual self. He then helped Tongning into the car and sat in the driver's seat. Rest if you're tired. I'll drive. This is a man's right and responsibility. Mo Ting laughed. Tongning shook her head helplessly. Just as she was about to say something, she noticed Elder Nangong standing behind Luo Sheng, looking at his script. Tongning furrowed her brows. She had no impression of this old man. Have you seen him before? Tongning asked. Mo Ting followed Tongning's gaze and shook his head. I'll find out if I ask. What kind of rule was this for a staff member to peek at an actor's script? Of course, Tongning did not say anything. She simply told Mo Ting to investigate first. While the Ant Queen 2 was in full swing, Parasite wasn't to be outdone either. Nangong Quan was extremely satisfied with the progress of filming. Ever since he confirmed his marriage, Nangong Quan's life had undergone a drastic change. It was like he had lost a sense of melancholy and gained a sense of pureness. As a result, everyone in the agency began to wonder if Nangong Quan was in love. But they had never heard that he was in contact with anyone. So they simply had no idea that Su Yuran was already living in his home. At that moment, the happiest person was Little Eggshell. Ever since Su Yuran revealed her relationship with Nangong Quan, Little Eggshell had begun to call her mommy. Su Yuran was elated to hear Little Eggshell call her mommy. However, the fact that the Mo family's 2 kids were sent to and from school instead of Little Eggshell caused a few rumors to spread. Of course, because the children did not know that the 2 boys were Mo Ting's children. Most of the ridicule was directed towards the 2 rascals. That big sister doesn't want you guys anymore. Kevin's little brother is an ugly freak. Because he used an English name at school, Mo Zishi was called Kevin. The students ostracized Mo Zichin because the scar on his face wasn't completely healed. As soon as he heard his classmates talk about his little brother like that, Mo Zishi immediately stood up with his hands on his hips. If you insult my little brother again, I'm going to beat you up. Mo Zichin immediately pulled Mo Zishi back and ignored him. But a moment later, the sound of a child crying could be heard in the classroom. The teacher immediately went forward to take a look, only to see that the child had tripped because the seat was tied together by a rope. Mo Zishi looked at Mo Zichin, but Mo Zichin acted like nothing had happened. It seemed from this point onwards, the 2 brothers developed a tacit understanding. On the surface, Mo Zishi pretended to protect his little brother and bluffed, while Mo Zichin secretly made a move to protect the 2 brothers. This meant, between the 2 brothers, Mo Zichin was the one with the ability to make a move. The teacher searched for half a day, but still couldn't find the culprit. So, She refused to believe that the kids in the class could be so smart at such a young age. The two brothers were the powerless type in the class. However, this didn't make them feel inferior. It was as if they knew they had a powerful background, so they never took the bullying of the other children seriously. When you find out who my parents are one day, you're going to be scared to death. Little Eggshell felt a little guilty. After all, she was the one who stole Su Yuran away, causing the two brothers to be the target of criticism from their classmates. They even said that their tutors didn't want them. Chapter 1149. So Tongning found someone else to pick the two brothers up. This time, it was a young man that had just retired from the army. This young man was simple and honest, but he was able to make a lot of handmade products, and was able to come up with a variety of styles to satisfy the Mo brothers. Apart from being simple and honest, he also had a girlfriend that he had been dating for 3 years. To help his girlfriend live a stable life, he accepted Tongning's offer to be the two brothers' bodyguard. Su Yuran finally relaxed when she saw that the two treasures of the Mo family had someone to pick them up. But little Eggshell couldn't help but care about the two brothers. So every time she picked up a candy or a new toy, she would look for Mo Zichi after class. Mo Zichin rarely interacted with others. Even when little Eggshell approached him, he would let his guard down, but he would never initiate a conversation. But the person that little Eggshell cared about the most was Mo Zichin. But when she noticed that Mo Zichin didn't want to talk to her, she decided to find an opportunity to get close to him. She simply wanted to catch a glimpse of him. Children did not know much about gratitude and grudges. Their thoughts were still very naive. Meanwhile, Su Yuran had already started preparing for her wedding. As Nangong Quan was busy with work, Su Yuran was in charge of all the small details. At this time, news of Nangong Quan's marriage finally arrived. Everyone was shocked. Didn't this eligible bachelor just return to Beijing not too long ago? The industry was filled with beautiful women, but he didn't interact much with any of them. Yet he was getting married? Soon, Su Yuran's identity was revealed. She was the daughter of the previously bankrupt Su family. Although she wasn't rich, she wasn't poor either. But to everyone's surprise, no one had heard anything about this beforehand. This could be considered as another Cinderella, flying into the branches of a rich and powerful family. Although everyone was suspicious, the two of them had not interacted with each other before, and now suddenly got married. What was the reason behind it? Nangong Quan was afraid that the attention would cause trouble for Su Yuran. But Su Yuran wasn't affected by the outside world. Instead, she continued to take care of little Eggshell, plan her wedding, and choose what she liked. I was afraid that the media would scare you. Hearing Nangong Quan's explanation, Su Yuran shook her head. I was prepared to be exposed a long time ago, so the current situation isn't too bad. But if you have time, when can we go pick out a dress and wedding dress? Thinking that little Eggshell and Mother Su were already asleep, Nangong Quan wrapped his arm around Su Yuran's waist. Since the wedding is just around the corner, you can stay in my room from now on. Faced with such a direct invitation, Su Yuran's face turned red. She knew what it meant. But could it be that you're not used to my existence? This is different, Su Yuran said as she covered her face. I'm nervous and I don't know what to do. Seeing Su Yuran's naive reaction, Nangong Quan laughed as he held onto her hands. Let's just go with the flow, okay? Su Yuran thought about it for a moment. Although Nangong Quan was almost 40, he still maintained his figure well. His physique was already bigger than Mo Ting's to begin with. With the addition of the muscles that he had previously trained overseas, he was definitely going to be a looker. Moreover, she was no longer a little girl of 10 years old. She was still so pure. Now that they were engaged and living in the same room, what was there for her to reject? In the end, Su Yuran nodded her head with a red face. Don't bully me. Ever since little Eggshell's mother passed away, Nangong Quan had not touched another woman. Now that she thought about it, he had been abstinent for 5 years. Su Yuran never imagined that the man that had endured for so long would be so terrifying when he regained control of his body. That night, after the couple had their showers, they lay down together. Su Yuran was still a little nervous, but Nangong Quan simply hugged her from behind and whispered in her ear, Go to sleep. It's been a tiring day. You've also worked hard preparing for the wedding. Su Yuran finally relaxed as she closed her eyes and fell asleep. Meanwhile, Mo Ting ordered Lu Che to investigate Elder Nangong. But Lu Che didn't find anything. According to the information, the explosives technician is 50 years old and has just returned from overseas. He has a lot of experience with explosives. Apart from that, there's nothing else. President, do you think there's anything wrong? 50 years old? He doesn't have a family? Mo Ting asked. According to the information, he's divorced and has been living on his own ever since. He has a son who lives in Los Angeles. After hearing this, Mo Ting nodded his head. Since that's the case, there's no need to investigate further. However, he still needed to remind the actors to take care of the things in their hands. The Ant Queen 2 was currently being filmed, so they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Tongning had already experienced enough hardship, so Elder Nangong didn't want her to encounter so many obstacles every time she did something. But Elder Nangong wasn't going to let Mo Ting get what he wanted. Since the investigation didn't find anything, it meant that Elder Nangong was no longer a suspect. So he could do whatever he wanted on set with ease. Elder Nangong seemed to know that someone was investigating him. His anti-investigation skills were too strong, so he was extra careful on set. I never thought that this young couple would be so observant. At least they're better than the rascal Nangong Quan. However, he had no idea that Nangong Quan was still investigating Qiu Jin's suicide. At this time, the crew were currently filming the climax of the Ant Queen 2. In other words, they were just about to start filming the scary part. So it wasn't long before Elder Nangong got his revenge. But strangely, Nangong Quan sent someone to investigate Qiu Jin's neighbors and discovered something important. According to the auntie living on the top floor, she ran into Uncle Qiu with an old man when she was walking down the stairs. I looked at the time and saw that it was half an hour before Uncle Qiu committed suicide. Can you describe the old man's appearance? Nangong Quan asked his assistant. The auntie said she couldn't remember clearly, but she remembered the old man had a black scar on the back of his hand. She saw it when she was walking down the stairs. Black scar. Hearing this name, Nangong Quan's expression turned a little ugly. Are you sure? The auntie said she's sure. It's not easy to forget something like that, his assistant replied. Call Beijing prison, Nangong Quan said anxiously. Nangong Quan said anxiously. Impossible, this is impossible. But suddenly a lot of things began to make sense. A few days ago, the person that shoved his parents' photo into his car, the person that constantly caused trouble for him and reminded him to remember his hatred. Could it be that they were all the same person? Chapter 1150. If his grandfather was released from prison, it was highly possible that he would seek revenge on the Mo family instead of contacting him. After all, he could be considered an unfilial descendant. Nangong Quan immediately contacted the prison. In the end, he received news that his grandfather had already been released from prison for quite some time. It was just that no one knew about it. Since Qiu Jin was dead, where was his grandfather? Nangong Quan began to feel a little worried. If Elder Nangong wanted revenge, he would definitely look for the Mo family. But there had been no news of him. What was he planning? Above all, he was about to marry Su Yuran. He didn't want to get involved in the past's hatred or get caught up in it. But Su Yuran was still his family. Aside from Little Eggshell, she was the only one. Because of this, Nangong Quan was a little hesitant. At this point, all he could think of was to find Tongning. Mo Ting had already guessed that Elder Nangong was probably hiding around the Mo family, waiting for an opportunity to strike. But he had no idea that Elder Nangong had already snuck onto the set of the Ant Queen 2. After returning home that night, Nangong Quan stretched out his arms and hugged Su Yuran. Su Yuran sensed he was upset, so she asked, "What's wrong?" "Grandfather has been released from prison, but I don't know where he is right now. He definitely had something to do with Uncle Qiu's death. What I'm afraid of now is that he will seek revenge on the Mo family." Old Master Nangong wasn't like the hooligans outside. He knew that his grandfather was ruthless and merciless when he made his move. If he really had the chance to deal with the Mo family, the Mo family would definitely suffer a heavy blow. After hearing Nangong Quan's words, Su Yuran fell silent. She understood how Nangong Quan felt. He didn't want his grandfather to continue killing, but he didn't know how to stop him. Quan, I know you're in a difficult position, but you should step out and stop them. At least, don't drag innocent people into this mess. As you know, the Mo family currently have 3 kids. If something happens to Mo Ting or Tongning, what will happen to them? Think about little Eggshell. She lost her mother when she was young. How painful was that? Nangong Quan took a deep breath and nodded his head. I'll find an opportunity to warn the Mo family. You have to pay attention to yourself. Didn't you collect a lot of photos a while ago? From the looks of it, your grandfather won't even let you off. If he finds out that you're ruining his plans, the consequences will be unimaginable. When that time comes, can't you protect me? Ha! Nangong Quan did not forget Su Yuran's skills. Of course I will protect you with my life. After hearing this, Nangong Quan laughed. Silly, I don't need your protection. As long as you protect yourself and little Eggshell, I won't have any weaknesses. Su Yuran hugged the man tightly. The more she understood him, the more she doted on him. Ever since he was young, he had carried a blood feud with him, but he had never blamed anyone. His breadth of mind wasn't something that others could compare to. Even Mo Ting wouldn't be able to do the same. Because of this, Nangong Quan ended up meeting up with Mo Ting the next day. Just like last time at Dynasty Hotel, the 2 men sat down quietly. This time, Mo Ting had completely let down his guard around Nangong Quan. I asked you to meet up today, because my grandfather has been released from prison. Mo Ting paused for a moment before his lips curved upwards. Why did you tell me? You must be hoping that I don't know anything. I don't know how he's going to hide around you. You and Tongning need to be careful. That's all I can do to help, Nangong Quan said. Mo Ting, I've said it before, I didn't return to Beijing for revenge and I don't hate you. I simply don't know how to face the Mo family. Sometimes, I can't help but want to target them. You should be careful too. If your grandfather hasn't contacted you, it means that you are a possible target. Nangong Quan, I must admit that you are worthy of my respect. At least, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be able to not pursue the matter. In that case, let's swap places for you in our next life. The couple quickly ate lunch and went their separate ways. Afterwards, Mo Ting told Tongning about the news that Nangong Quan brought. Nangong Quan told me that Elder Nangong has been released from prison. In fact, I don't know where he's hiding right now, but he's preparing to do something to us. Did Nangong Quan tell you that? Mo Ting nodded his head. He sure is broad-minded, Tongning laughed. If you weren't enemies, he would be a great big brother. Look at me, it's because I can't let go of my hatred that I ended up punishing Han Yufan and Mo Euro. None of us are as good as him. Right now, the most important thing is to keep an eye out for any abnormalities around you, Mo Ting said. You need to be on guard, but at the same time, you can't let him know in case he tries to do something to Nangong Quan. I understand. Tongning nodded her head. With this, she would be more careful about her own safety. However, they still hadn't paid attention to the film crew. However, even after a while, Elder Nangong still did not make a move. Everyone couldn't help but be impressed by his patience. Meanwhile, the filming of The Ant Queen 2 was about to begin with all sorts of special effects. In other words, when it came to explosives, it was time. Because Mo Ting wasn't present in the previous few scenes, Elder Nangong had completed his task well. As a result, his actions did not arouse any suspicions. But according to the upcoming filming schedule, there was going to be an important scene between Mo Ting and Old Long in 2 days. That would be the perfect opportunity to make a move. After waiting for so long, his efforts weren't in vain. Meanwhile, apart from the Mo family, Nangong Quan was also searching for Elder Nangong. Seeing how anxious he was, Su Yuran had no choice but to help him. Isn't President Mo currently filming? Could it be that Grandpa is hiding in the crew? Hearing Su Yuran's words, Nangong Quan immediately understood. But Mo Ting definitely won't recognize Elder Nangong. Even if he has a black scar on the back of his hand, he could still be faking it. That's why I need you to go. I don't think President Mo will reject a request like this. Although it's a little awkward for you to enter the Ant Queen too with your identity, it's for the sake of their safety. Thank you, Yuran, for thinking of this. After speaking, Nangong Quan stood up and gave Mo Ting a phone call. And of course Mo Ting couldn't reject. At this time, there was less than a day left until the explosion scene. Chapter 1151. To eliminate suspicion, Mo Ting brought Nangong Quan to the set of the Ant Queen 2. Of course, to avoid alerting anyone, no one knew that Nangong Quan was hiding in Mo Ting's black Rolls Royce. But Nangong Quan scanned through everyone on set. But he did not spot his grandfather, nor did he spot the old man with the black scar on the back of his hand. Because there wasn't a single man on set that matched his age. No. Did you look through everyone? Mo Ting reminded. If even you can't recognize Elder Nangong, then no one can. I haven't seen my grandfather in a long time. Nangong Quan said coldly. In the past 20 years I've only seen him 3 times. Since that's the case, I'll take you home, Mo Ting said. Wait. Nangong Quan's gaze was suddenly drawn to a tall and skinny man. From the back they looked similar. But when the man turned around, Nangong Quan realized that he was in his early 20s. However, his back looked a little weathered. In the end, he had no choice but to give up. Let's go. Mo Ting rolled up his car window and drove out of the set. But as soon as he left, Elder Nangong appeared at the spot where he parked his car. The 2 rascals were indeed alert and cautious. But it wasn't going to be easy for them to find him. After spending so many years in the underworld, Elder Nangong's skills weren't learned for nothing. While he was in prison, a good friend had told him that Nangong Quan already knew that he had been released from prison, and predicted that he would do something to the Mo family. That's why he got into Mo Ting's car and drove to the set of the Ant Queen 2. What a traitor! Of course, it was impossible for Nangong Quan to recognize him. After all, not only did he make himself look 10 years younger, he also made a huge change to his appearance. Did these 2 rascals think they could recognize me? They must be dreaming. The old man lowered his head and worked on set. He did all the dirty and tiring work, so he won the respect and trust of many staff. Only when he revealed his fierce fangs did these people understand the consequences of trusting the wrong person. Nangong Quan did not recognize Elder Nangong, but he did not give up on looking for him. As soon as Su Yuran found out, she comforted. You've done your best. If I had visited him a few more times while he was in prison, perhaps things wouldn't be like this, Nangong Quan said as he sat on the sofa with a hint of regret in his eyes. This isn't your fault, Su Yuran said as she hugged Nangong Quan. That's enough, don't blame yourself. You've already done enough. Nangong Quan felt like something wasn't right, but he couldn't figure out what it was. For some reason, he felt a sense of familiarity with some of the staff on the set of the Ant Queen 2. But he couldn't pinpoint who it was. The old master must be there. It was just that he didn't recognize the person at the moment. After Mo Ting returned home, Tongning asked Nangong Quan how he went to identify the person on set, but she didn't find anything. Tongning smiled and comforted. If you're already in a state of fear, how are you going to survive? Let's just be careful. Mo Ting did not say a word. In reality, he was simply glad that he was the one filming the Ant Queen 2 and not Tongning. So Tongning didn't need to appear in a dangerous place. This was a relief. No matter what Elder Nangong's plan was, as long as Tongning was fine, he had no weaknesses. After all, Tongning was his biggest weakness in this world. The next day, the crew prepared for an explosion scene. As an explosives technician, this was Elder Nangong's most excited and emotional moment. He wanted to use the perfect setup to create the most perfect mistake. As long as Mo Ting stepped on it, he would be blown to smithereens on the spot. That morning, as soon as Mo Ting left the house, Tongning felt a little uneasy. But she couldn't explain why. Lin Qian had just arrived at Hyatt Regency to tell her about Superstar Media's situation. But Tongning's mind was elsewhere. Ningjia, what's wrong? Lin Qian asked. Did something happen? Tongning waved her hand, gesturing for Lin Qian not to speak. Let me think about it. Doesn't President Mo have important scenes to film in the next 2 days? Does the thing that you forgot have anything to do with this? After hearing Lin Qian's reminder, Tongning woke up from her daze and immediately gave the production crew a phone call to Qiao Man. Qiao Man, can the explosion scene be dealt with in post-production? If your post-production team is at this level, then there's no need. At least, we don't need any actors. In that case, can we cancel all of the recent explosion scenes? Tongning asked anxiously. Although Qiao Man didn't know why Tongning was interfering with filming, she had no reason to reject Tongning's request. Today's scene has already been set up. Let's finish filming first. We won't film the rest for now. Qiao Man, I feel like something's not right. Can we also cancel today's scene? What's wrong? Listen to me, I'll explain to you later. Although Qiao Man didn't know why Tongning was stopping them from filming the explosion scenes, she knew that Tongning wasn't an unreasonable person. Since Tongning made a request like this, Qiao Man had no choice but to stop filming for the day. Today's explosion scene will be pushed back, so let's film the next scene first, Qiao Man informed the crew. Qiao Man informed the stage supervisor and the other crew members, especially the explosives technicians. Remove the hidden safety hazards and clean the set. The set had already been set up, yet Qiao Man suddenly wanted to stop filming? Director Qiao, what's the reason? You need to explain it to everyone. Otherwise, everything we've prepared today will go to waste. This is what the producer wants. If you have any questions, you can ask her directly. Qiao Man said this because she didn't know what Tongning wanted to do and why she was interfering with filming. But, as Mo Ting and the other actors were preparing in the waiting room, they looked at each other and asked, why did they suddenly change their scenes? Ningjie doesn't normally interfere with filming. I think there's a reason behind it. Don't guess, just listen to the arrangements. Tongning didn't have time to discuss this matter with Mo Ting over the phone because she didn't want Mo Ting to be in any danger. Since Elder Nangong had his eyes on them and they couldn't find him, then they shouldn't give him any chances. Especially when it came to the explosion scenes. They couldn't give Elder Nangong any chance to escape. Chapter 1152. After the explosion scene was cancelled, Elder Nangong's expression was naturally not good. After all, this was a rare opportunity that he had been waiting for. Who would have thought he was just one step away from killing Mo Ting? But a phone call from Tongning completely destroyed everything he had planned. Most importantly, the explosives that he had set up were a huge safety hazard. After all, he had no intention of leaving Mo Ting with a chance of survival. But now that filming had been cancelled, he had to clear out all the traps that he had set up. Otherwise, he would definitely alert the enemy. In reality, this wasn't because of Tongning's intuition, but because of her cautiousness. The explosion scene was such a big scene. If someone tampered with it, who could guarantee her husband's safety? But because Qiao Man was about to film the next scene, she instructed the miscellaneous items team to clear out the set. So before Elder Nangong appeared, she had to clear out the other traps first. But unexpectedly, she triggered the switch that Elder Nangong had set up. All that was heard was a loud bang. The entire film studio was shaken by the loud bang. Afterwards, there was a strong explosion of fire and debris. Everyone was still in shock. But as they watched the terrifying scene, a thought suddenly popped into their heads. An explosion. The entire set was filled with screams, arguments, and questions. Afterwards, Mo Ting immediately called Lu Che to report in, and called the police. In an instant, the explosion at the film studio spread like wildfire. Online, all sorts of rumors and guesses began to appear. How many people died? What caused the explosion? Now it was all just a rumor. But only Mo Ting and a few others knew the real cause of the explosion. After the police arrived, they quickly cleaned up the scene and verified whether there were any casualties. Luckily, even though the trap had been triggered, the person that triggered it jumped into a nearby pit in time, so he did not suffer any serious injuries. As for the staff closest to him, he only suffered superficial injuries. How lucky, no one was seriously injured. Where's the explosives technician? Where's the person in charge of the explosion? Did he start working without any identification? The police questioned the staff on set. At this time, everyone realized that Elder Nangong was nowhere to be found. At this time, he received a phone call from Nangong Quan. I've thought about it for a long time, but I couldn't figure it out. But now, I finally know who to watch out for. The explosives technician. Your phone call was late. Didn't you see the news? Mo Ting asked. Nangong Quan furrowed his brows and gestured for his assistant to hand him his phone. At this time, he finally found out from the news that an explosion had occurred at Hai Rui's film studio. Not long after, Tongning arrived on set. As soon as she saw Mo Ting, she stretched out her arms and hugged him. Thank God you're fine. Mo Ting hugged Tongning tightly. If it wasn't for Tongning's phone call, he would have been. I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry. First, help the police clean up the scene. Everything else can be discussed at home. Tongning regained her composure and comforted the crew. Seeing this, Mo Ting asked Lu Che to contact Fang Yu and ask him to give him a detailed report on the incident. In reality, Mo Ting wanted Fang Yu to keep an eye out for clues. In this aspect, Lu Che wasn't as meticulous as Fang Yu. Afterwards, Hai Rui publicly announced that there were no casualties, and that the police were currently investigating the cause of the explosion. Hai Rui would also give the public an answer as soon as possible. Of course, this incident was blown out of proportion, and almost cost Mo Ting his life. As soon as Elder Mo heard about it, he immediately returned to Hyatt Regency. That old bastard is extremely cunning. It's normal that you couldn't find anything. 20 years ago, we spent a lot of manpower and resources to send him to prison. Who would have thought, as soon as he was released, he would try to take my grandson's life? Luckily, Xiaoning reacted quickly this time. After returning home, Mo Ting did not say a word as he sat on the sofa. As he looked at the old man, his expression turned cold. If you had cleaned up the mess back then, you wouldn't be in such a state. Who would have thought that he would survive until he was released? Elder Mo scoffed. After this incident, his identity has already been exposed. So, it's impossible for him to use a fake identity to get close to us again. This is actually a good thing. Mo Ting stood up from the sofa. Now that he's staked everything on the Mo family, I'm afraid there's going to be another bloodbath when he returns to the Nangong family. Elder Mo humphed without saying a word. This was the first time he had been scolded by a junior. Let's wait for Fang Yu's report to come out and see what the situation is like. Tongning comforted as she patted the back of her husband's hand. Fortunately, no one got hurt. This is the best outcome. From now on, when he's in the open, he won't have as many opportunities to strike again. Mo Ting did not say a word. His expression was dark as he waited for Elder Mo to leave before he held onto Tongning's hand and led her into the bathroom. The couple then lay in the bathtub. Seeing him close his eyes, Tongning couldn't help but ask, "Are you tired?" Nangong Quan and I are the same. We don't want to get involved in this mess. We simply want to live a stable life. No matter how old the grudges are. I don't want you and our child to get involved. But we've already encountered it. What can we do? You can't expect grandfather to shoulder the responsibility on his own. Besides, he didn't do anything wrong in the past. Don't force me to take action. Mo Ting said calmly as he opened his eyes and looked at Tongning. But Tongning could see a deep look in his eyes that she had never seen before. Right now, I don't care if I'm threatened or injured. But if it's you, I will definitely send him to hell. Your life is in danger today. I already want him to go to hell. Ting, don't always think of me as a weak person. With you around, I have nothing to fear. Don't think of me as a weak person. We're already used to the disputes in the industry. Isn't it just revenge? Isn't that common? Let's see how Nangong Quan is dealt with first. That old bastard can only return to the Nangong family for now. Indeed, because the old man had failed, he had no choice but to give up his identity as an explosives expert, and the police had nowhere to find him. Therefore, he could only return to the Nangong family by leaving the prison. But was Nangong Quan happy? Not at all. It wasn't because he didn't want to see his grandfather, but because his grandfather had just placed a bomb in someone else's territory. What was even more frightening was that his grandfather didn't think what he did was wrong. He didn't respect life at all. Chapter 1153. It was only natural for Elder Nangong to return to the Nangong family. Everyone was well aware of the explosion at Hai Rui's film studio. But since there were no casualties, Elder Nangong's efforts were for nothing. He never expected that Mo Ting's woman wasn't as naive as a rich family's wife. She was so cautious. Afterwards, Xiao Man asked Tongning, who had come to visit on another set, "When you called me to cancel the explosion scene, was it because you thought it would be dangerous?" Tongning gently nodded her head. "To be honest, I recently encountered a small problem. Luckily, no one on set got hurt." After hearing this, Xiao Man laughed. "Can you guarantee that the crew is safe right now?" Tongning was silent for a few seconds before she finally nodded her head. "Don't worry. Nowadays, everyone that enters and exits must go through a strict inspection. Even if it's an extra, they will be very picky. There won't be any more security issues. Since you've said it, I trust you. As for personal grudges, you guys can resolve it yourselves. By the way, the person that caused the problem was the explosives technician, right?" Tongning nodded her head again. "I never expected that the competition in the industry would be so vicious." Xiao Man thought it was a result of competition, so Tongning did not explain further. Since Elder Nangong was no longer in the dark, things were a lot easier to handle. Because of this, Mo Ting became even stricter with Hai Rui's staff. So Fang Yu's report was quickly placed on Mo Ting's desk. "President Mo, here's what you wanted. You must have heard that Elder Nangong has been released from prison. Use your connections and keep a close eye on him. At least, don't let him have another chance to make a move," Mo Ting instructed. "Fang Yu, this is an important matter. I'm sure you understand that it concerns the Mo family's safety." Fang Yu nodded his head as he crossed his arms with a serious expression. "Since you've decided to bypass Lu Che and leave this matter to me, I've already realized the seriousness of this matter. If there are any signs of trouble, immediately eliminate them at all costs." "Understood," Fang Yu replied in seriousness. The reason why Mo Ting didn't allow Lu Che to get involved was because Elder Nangong would keep a close eye on Lu Che's movements, and it wouldn't be beneficial to his work. Most importantly, Lu Che was more loyal than Fang Yu. In other words, his reaction speed wasn't as fast as Fang Yu's. This was also the reason why Fang Yu was able to be the director of PR for so many years, and was known by the public as the reason there was no news he couldn't handle. Fang Yu was currently the vice president of Hai Rui. But more importantly, he had been entrusted with an important task by Mo Ting. After Fang Yu left, Mo Ting walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out into the distance. He didn't know why, but the current him was so cautious. If this was in the past, he would have already razed the Nangong family to the ground. Because of Tongning, he had to restrain himself. Afterwards, Hai Rui released the results of their investigation to the public. They confirmed that the cause of the explosion was man-made, and that the explosives technician with the surname Zheng had used a fake identity to infiltrate Hai Rui's crew. The police will continue to investigate, but the public has a very bold guess. Who could have such a huge grudge against the Mo family? Only the Nangong family could do it. If this was really done by the Nangong family, then isn't their method too lowly? They blew up the film base just like that. Fortunately, no one died. So, when the big bosses play with the big bosses, they directly use guns? Netizens started to ridicule the explosion and point their fingers at the Nangong family's Springfall film and television. However, Springfall did not step out to provide an explanation. This was because Mo Ting and Nangong Quan had a tacit understanding. At least, they had to attract the public's attention so that Elder Nangong would behave himself. Nangong Quan imagined countless scenarios where he would see his grandfather again. But he definitely wouldn't see him like this. He was sitting in his office with a disdainful expression and a cigarette in his hand. Of course, without his disguise, Elder Nangong's hair was white and the black scar on the back of his hand was revealed, making him look like a gangster. "My dear grandson, grandfather is back. But you don't seem happy." Nangong Quan put down the documents in his hands and looked at Elder Nangong. He then got straight to the point. "Grandfather, I'm already in my 70s. It's time for me to enjoy my old age. It's a pity. My muscles and bones are still strong, so I can still move." Elder Nangong laughed. I know my grandson is about to get married and he has an adorable daughter. Yet, you're complaining that an old man like me is a hindrance and shouldn't have been released from prison. Grandfather, apart from little Eggshell, you are my only relative. But I can't agree with you seeking revenge on the Mo family. Do you still want to go back in prison? The Mo family owes me that. They should still be. No one owes you anything. This world doesn't allow evil to exist. Don't you know what you've done in the past? Even if it wasn't the Mo family, there was still the Zhang family and the Li family. Destruction is your only way out. Nangong Quan said coldly. What I want to do is none of your business, you rascal. My abilities are indeed limited, but I won't sit idly by. Nangong Quan replied firmly. Don't force me to put justice before family. After hearing this, Elder Nangong sneered. You've indeed grown up. Aren't you afraid that I'll do something to your fiancé? I won't compromise with anything that's wrong. Many years ago, I stabbed someone in the US and ended up in prison. Even today, I'm still the same. I can't be a coward, but you are, because you can't admit to your own mistakes. Great, that's great. The grandfather and grandson glared at each other. But in the end, Elder Nangong backed down. You weren't the one in prison. You can't understand how I feel. Nangong Quan no longer felt the need to talk to Elder Nangong, so he called his assistant over. Take Elder Nangong to the villa to get some rest. I already made arrangements. No need. I feel more comfortable on my own. After speaking, Elder Nangong turned around to leave Springfall. But Nangong Quan held him back. Did Uncle Chiu die because of you? That's because he was too mentally weak. Over 20 years ago, you weren't able to defeat Elder Mo on the battlefield. Now, over 20 years later, you still want to use such a dishonorable method to defeat the Mo family. Grandfather, only rats and cockroaches would do such dirty and unfair things. Do you really think highly of yourself? Elder Nangong laughed as he waved his hand. However, he had already expected that the grandfather and grandson would part ways on bad terms after seeing Nangong Quan. After all, their values had always been different. Chapter 1154. Not long after Elder Nangong was released from prison, he headed to the U.S. As soon as he returned, he snuck onto the set of the Ant Queen 2. Up until this point, he still hadn't fully understood the extent of Hai Rui's development. As the leader of the entertainment industry, Mo Ting represented the industry's authority. Under his management, Hai Rui entered a virtuous cycle and nurtured countless superstars and top actresses. Elder Mo had already retired a long time ago. But apart from doing some shady things, what else could he do to compete with the Mo family? After all, he had missed out on 20 years of his life. Yet, Nangong Quan naively thought that he could compete with Hai Rui if he took the right path. Elder Nangong returned to the place that his friend had prepared for him, and told him about the explosion at Hai Rui's film studio. His friend sighed and said, Elder, to be honest, I was released a few years before you and it took me a long time to reintegrate into the world. This is no longer the era where we fight and fight. Everything has to be done according to the law. Plus, the police are very efficient these days. So, I'm afraid the path that you want to take won't work, his friend said from the bottom of his heart as he puffed out a ring of smoke. No wonder your grandson doesn't want to get involved in any more trouble. It wasn't easy for him to get to where he is today. To put it bluntly, if he gets implicated because of you, then everything he's done will go to waste. Besides, he's right. If you can't hold the Mo family back on the battlefield, then there's nothing to be happy about even if you win. So, what are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is you're smart. Go back and help your grandson expand Springfall. Then, on the battlefield, you can steal the Mo family's business and artists. Isn't that more interesting? At least you won't be as cowardly as you are now. Elder Nangong took a puff of his cigarette and fell into deep thought. To be honest, you didn't manage to blow Mo Ting up this time. So you won't get another chance like this again. How could he ask someone who was used to walking the crooked path to suddenly walk the right path? Plus, you're an experienced person. There are plenty of dirty things in the entertainment industry. Isn't this more suitable for you? Over the past few years, I've made a small fortune. Thank you for taking care of me. As long as you need it, I can invest in you at any time. Old Master Nangong took a deep puff and nodded. Let me think about it. Although Old Master Nangong didn't want to admit it, more than 20 years had passed and the world had changed drastically. Where else could he put his ambitions to? Only the entertainment industry that he was somewhat familiar with. Just like what his good friend had said, rather than sneaking around, it was better to come out openly and discuss the Mo family. They would fight to the death like this. By this time, Nangong Quan's wedding date was approaching. For safety reasons, Nangong Quan did not invite too many people. After all, he and Su Yuran did not have any friends or family. Other than Little Eggshell and Auntie Sue, they didn't have anyone else to invite. Because of this, Nangong Quan felt extremely guilty towards Su Yuran. I've really wronged you by making you marry me like this. It's not up to us to decide how many relatives we have. So what if we have a few people? So what if we have a few hundred people? I'm marrying you, not your relatives or friends. Nangong Quan took a deep breath and finally felt relieved. I'll treat you even better. I'm already satisfied, okay? At least I'm Mrs. Nangong. Don't other people think I'm a rich woman? Su Yuran joked. Plus, these are special times. As long as I can be by your side, I don't mind doing anything else. I'm already satisfied. I'm lucky to have met you. Nangong Quan hugged Su Yuran tightly. Of course, Su Yuran felt the same way, because she deeply doted on Nangong Quan. She doted on his magnanimity, but she also doted on the fact that he was stuck in a dilemma. Afterwards, Su Yuran received an anonymous gift. Although it didn't have a name on it, she could guess that it was from someone else. Take it. Nangong Quan said, afraid that Su Yuran would be put in a difficult position. The couple are very thoughtful. Sometimes, the Mo couple's enemies were more important than the people around her. For example, Father Su and her auntie. But the next morning, Nangong Quan returned to his office to see his grandfather. He thought that after their argument, Elder Nangong wouldn't want to see him again. Who would have thought? Don't look at me like that. Although you said a bunch of shit that day, it wasn't without reason. Elder Nangong said as he sat down in front of Nangong Quan. That's why I've decided to come back and invest in your business. Nangong Quan looked at Elder Nangong cautiously in confusion. He was afraid that Elder Nangong had obtained his money through dirty means again. Don't worry, it's all clean money. I won't make a move on the Mo family apart from business. I'm sure you're satisfied. Elder Nangong said in seriousness. Are you serious? Do you think I need to lie to you? Elder Nangong humphed. You're getting married, so you need someone to officiate your wedding. Do you really think the Nangong family doesn't have anyone else? But I need to make a deal with you. When it comes to business, there's no room for deception. I won't go easy on the Mo family. You can't interfere with my decision. Grandfather, as long as you're doing the right thing, who can stop you? Nangong Quan replied. Rascal. It's time for me to meet up with an old friend. Seeing the sincerity on Elder Nangong's face, Nangong Quan let down half of his guard. After all, he still needed to see if Elder Nangong would do as he said. After all, he was probably the only person in the world that worried so much for the sake of his enemy. Of course, Elder Nangong's return also meant that he and Mo Ting would never be able to sit down and chat as friends. After all, there was still a grudge. After hearing about this, Su Yuran felt a little uneasy. But he was still Nangong Quan's grandfather, so she needed to be tolerant. As for how things would turn out with the Mo family, she couldn't imagine it. In reality, she was well aware of how much Nangong Quan wanted to have friends by his side. Mo Ting was someone he had acknowledged since he was young, but they were destined to be enemies. Soon, Elder Nangong officially returned to the Nangong family and invested in Springfall. He also announced that he wanted to expand the company. As a result, Springfall immediately became one of the top 3 companies in the entertainment industry. In other words, Springfall had a lot of money. Seeing this news, Tongming was a little worried. So she said to Mo Ting, Elder Nangong has seen the script of the Ant Queen too. You and I have seen it with our own eyes. If he's any more despicable, I think we may be in trouble again. Isn't the battlefield a lot more interesting? Mo Ting asked calmly. Chapter 1155. As for Elder Nangong's return, everyone in the industry had their own opinions. After all, there hadn't been a competitor that could compete with Hai Rui in the past few decades. So Springfall's development was obviously meant to reshuffle the industry. Mo Ting had been the big boss for so many years, so someone was bound to challenge his authority. But right after Hai Rui's film studio exploded, Elder Nangong announced that he was investing in Springfall and officially returning to the entertainment industry. This timing was indeed a bit of a coincidence. The Mo family and Nangong family were bitter enemies, and they were both competitors in the entertainment industry. So, a battle between the big bosses was bound to be even more exciting. It wouldn't be as simple as destroying Hai Rui's film studio. In short, the public simply had to sit back and enjoy the show. Elder Nangong had indeed looked through parts of the Ant Queen 2's script, but he only looked at the scenes of individual actors. If it was someone else, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But he was different. Although he had agreed not to make a move against the Mo family in other aspects of the business, he was still very good at making his opponents suffer. The Ant Queen 2 was Hai Rui's most important project next year. After all, Tongning relied on her reputation to bring the Ant Queen 2 to the international stage. So apart from making Parasite a hit, Elder Nangong's other important task was to make the Ant Queen 2 fail. Of course, there was no need for him to replicate it. All he had to do was spend a large sum of money to contact an overseas team and share his understanding of the Ant Queen 2 with them. Then, with the help of Hollywood's post-production, he could produce a new film. That way, the Ant Queen 2 would clash with an overseas film next year. That would be a spectacular scene. Would Tongning be the one copying Hollywood? Or would Hollywood be the one copying Tongning? As long as the American film studio refused to admit to it, Tongning would always be the one copying Hollywood. After all, did anyone believe that a Beijing producer could produce a film that Hollywood would copy? Only a ghost would believe that. Of course, Elder Nangong planned all of this quietly. After all, it was a huge project. First, he needed to convince the other party, which required a lot of effort. But the US operated on capital, so he believed that as long as he offered enough money, everything could be negotiated. Nangong Quan had no idea. After all, ever since Elder Nangong invested in Springfall, he had not done anything stupid behind his back. It seemed he was seriously integrating into the world. Who would have expected that he had dug such a deep pit for the Mo family? Soon, it was time for Nangong Quan and Su Yuren's wedding. As they didn't invite a lot of guests, they held a private ceremony inside the church. After Elder Nangong became the witness for the couple, the first thing he said to Su Yuran was, "Hurry up and give the Nangong family another grandchild." Su Yuran smiled as she greeted her grandfather. But deep down, she was feeling uneasy about this old man. Mother Su sat in her wheelchair, looking at old man Nangong from afar. Before this old man appeared, everything was perfect. But now, she felt like the Nangong Quan couple's life was about to enter a whirlpool. She was afraid that her daughter would be involved in the feud between the rich and the powerful. Little Eggshell, on the other hand, was excited because she finally had a mother. As a little flower girl, she stayed by Su Yuren's side and didn't want her to leave. The newlyweds announced their vows and the ceremony was a success. Nangong Quan and Su Yuren's wedding ended with a group photo of the five of them. However, photos of their wedding were only released to the media afterwards. On their wedding night, Mother Su took little Eggshell to bed and left some time for the newlyweds. As soon as he saw Su Yuran in her white dress, Nangong Quan wrapped his arms around her apologetically. "I feel bad for marrying you so easily." "I understand," Nangong Quan replied as he hugged Nangong Quan. Su Yuran hugged Nangong Quan back. "I know that with grandfather around, you're a little nervous. I swear one day I'm going to make it up to you with a grand wedding. It's not that important. A wedding is just a ceremony. Look at them, they haven't even had a wedding yet. But aren't they still very happy?" Su Yuran shook her head to show that she didn't mind. "Quan, do you know why I insisted on marrying you so quickly?" Nangong Quan looked at Su Yuran and at his wife. His eyes sparkled like the stars in the night sky. "Because I don't want you to face everything on your own. I want to be by your side. Even if I can't help you with anything, at least I can share your burden and be a good wife to you. I will take good care of myself and little eggshell. That's enough for me, you've already done enough. Nangong Quan's heart warmed. He knew that he didn't marry the wrong person. And he also knew that little eggshell didn't choose the wrong person. The brave woman in front of him was indeed brave enough to enter the tiger's den. All for the sake of the stubbornness and love in her heart. Nangong Quan couldn't take it anymore, so he unzipped Su Yuren's dress. Are you ready? Su Yuren's face turned red as she nodded her head. The white dress fell to the ground as Nangong Quan carried Su Yuren in his arms and placed her on the soft wedding bed. This was the night of their wedding. That night, Tongning snuggled up in Mo Ting's arms as she drank red wine. The couple had never been so relaxed before. They simply leaned against each other as they drank and chatted. Nangong Quan and Yuren got married today. I never expected them to be so fast. As long as they need each other, they can't wait to be together. Mo Ting stretched out his hand and stroked Tongning's chin as he lazily closed his eyes. I heard from Fong Yu that Elder Nangong is interested in contacting a Hollywood film company. After hearing this, Tongning immediately flipped over. What does he want to do? I don't know yet. The only thing I'm sure of is that he will continue to make small moves in the future. But no matter what he wants to do, I will tell him that the entertainment industry is no longer the same as it was 22 years ago. This industry is no longer ruled by him, but by me. Tongning lay back down and wrapped Mo Ting's arm around her neck. Since he wants to play, then let's play with him. His unyielding spirit is very commendable. Tired? Mo Ting asked after seeing that Tongning had stopped moving. Seeing that she didn't respond, he reached out for a blanket and wrapped it around her. So he allowed Tongning to lean against him. Even if his entire body was numb, it didn't matter. He couldn't bear to let her go. Chapter 1156. The next morning, Su Yuren woke up early to take little eggshell to school. But when she arrived, she ran into Elder Nangong in the living room. Grandfather, great-grandfather. The mother and daughter were extremely cautious. After all, they were deeply afraid of this old man. Meanwhile, Elder Nangong did not have a friendly expression on his face, but his words were not harsh either. Find a new school for little Kai Er so she doesn't run into the Mo family all the time. Grandfather, Quan has always been in charge of little eggshell's education. You can tell him that I'll take little eggshell to school today. Su Yuren cleverly threw the question to Nangong Quan. After all, Nangong Quan was the head of the family. After receiving Su Yuren's response, Elder Nangong did not say anything else. He simply nodded his head and watched as the mother and daughter left. This rascal's daughter and wife were still wary of him. After boarding the car, little eggshell grabbed onto the corner of Su Yuren's shirt in fear. Mommy, why is great-grandfather so scary? Why doesn't he want me to go to school? It's not that great-grandfather doesn't want little eggshell to go to school. It's just, for some adult reasons, great-grandfather doesn't want little eggshell to get too close to the twins, Su Yuren explained. Then, I promise I won't look for them again. Does that mean great-grandfather will agree not to transfer little eggshell to another school? It was an adult grudge, yet it involved a child. Su Yuren felt helpless, so she stretched out her arms and hugged little eggshell. Little eggshell, you need to remember, this isn't your fault, okay? Little eggshell lowered her head in disappointment. In the end, she compromised. Okay, mommy. Whether or not little eggshell would transfer to another school depended on Nangong Quan's decision. Unfortunately, she ran into the Mo family's twins that day. As soon as the twins saw little eggshell, they approached her. Meanwhile, Mo Zishi approached to talk to little eggshell, but she quickly avoided him. Mo Zishi looked hurt and confused, but Mo Zichin acted like he didn't care. The young man that drove the twins looked at Su Yuren in confusion. So Su Yuren explained, the kids were scolded at home today, so they're not in a good mood. The other party understood and nodded. It's all right. Let alone an adult, even a child couldn't handle the sudden changes in temperature and distance. Especially since Mo Zishi was a brave and lively child. But after being rejected by little eggshell that morning, he was unhappy until lunchtime. Seeing that his brother didn't respond, Zichen secretly handed him the cake that the teacher had given him earlier that afternoon. But as soon as Zishi saw the cake, he looked disinterested. As soon as the chubby boy saw the cake, he playfully stretched out his hand and knocked Zishi to the ground. This time, Zishi was furious. "My little brother gave me this cake. I'm going to beat you up." After saying that, she swung her fist over. To the children, this was the battle of the century. By the time the teacher arrived, the chubby boy was already lying on the ground with a bloody nose. The teacher was so shocked that she pointed at Zishi and yelled, "Call your parents over tomorrow." Zishi glanced at Zichen, but Zichen seemed indifferent. "Are you sure? Did she want to see their parents?" It didn't take long before the chubby boy's mother found out that her son had been beaten up at school. Since her family had some power, she immediately went to the classroom and confronted Zishi. "You were the one that beat my son up last time. You're doing it again today. Let go of me. Let go of me. He was in the wrong first. Do you think you're in the right for hitting someone? Let me tell you, I'm going to call your parents over and make them apologize to my son in front of everyone. Otherwise, you can kneel down and apologize to my son right now." "I don't want to." Zishi struggled. I don't want to. Perhaps because the scene was too ugly, the parent did not follow through with what she said. Instead, she caused a scene in the principal's office and demanded that the matter be dealt with seriously. At the very least, she wanted the brothers to be kicked out of the school. That was the only way to appease her anger. After all, Zishi's nose was bleeding. How serious was this? The homeroom teacher was also furious. So she turned to the young man that came to pick the two brothers up from school and said, "Tell the parents to come to my office tomorrow morning. Otherwise, they will be expelled." The young man didn't understand. After a while, he tried to understand the truth. In the end, he found out that his little brat had hit someone again. "Okay, I'll go back and tell the parents," the young man said to the homeroom teacher. Although he felt that Zishi wasn't wrong to retaliate against the bullying, Zishi often underestimated the strength of his fists. As for the chubby kid, he thought that because his mother was on the school board, he could do whatever he wanted. At such a young age, he already knew how to use his background to bully his classmates. He deserved to be beaten up. Even so, he was now famous in the school. As the young man drove the two brothers home, he explained the entire incident to Tongning. After hearing the story, Tongning burst into laughter. Did he hit someone again? Plus, the school has requested that the parents report to the homeroom teacher's office tomorrow, the young man said as he scratched his head. "Junyi, go home first. I'll give you the day off tomorrow," Tongning smiled. "Okay," the young man nodded. After driving the kids home, he returned to his home. Seeing Zishi's guilty expression, Tongning knelt down and said, "You didn't do anything wrong. Why are you afraid?" Because, Zishi, it's okay to protect your brother, but don't go overboard. Do you know what going overboard means? Just grab onto the person, don't hit him. You know it's wrong to hit someone, right? Mommy, it's okay this time. You've learned from experience. Next time, don't hit someone. Promise, Mommy, okay? Tongning asked patiently. Zishi looked at his son, and the two brothers nodded their heads. We'll listen to Mommy. However, the troublesome thing was, the chubby kid had a nosebleed. The little rascal was a little ruthless. That night, Ting returned home, and Tongning told him about the incident. Zishi immediately rubbed his hands together and explained, Mommy, he fell down." Tongning understood. The chubby kid must have been bleeding from the fall. Either way, it seems we have to go to school tomorrow. I'll go. At least I can be gentle. If you go, you'll definitely scare someone, Tongning said to Ting. How dare you bully the family's children? Ting scoffed. You'll find out tomorrow, Tongning laughed. Originally, she wanted the two rascals to keep a low profile. Who would have thought they would cause so much trouble? In such a short period of time, this was the second time they had hit someone. Chapter 1157. After the parent-teacher conference tomorrow, I will ask Lu Che to help them transfer schools. There's no need for that, Tongning laughed. I'll go while the school is in session. I don't think too many people will find out. As long as we keep a low profile, it shouldn't be a big problem. As my sons, can they only use their fists? They're still young. After hearing Tongning's words, Mo Ting gently stroked her hair. Whatever his wife said he would do, go tomorrow and show them how powerful you are. Yes, President Mo. Tongning couldn't help but place a kiss on Mo Ting's lips. The next day, the principal and the chubby boy's parents were already waiting in the office for the two rascals' parents to arrive. From the looks on their faces, it was obvious that they had no intention of letting the twins off, especially when it was already time for class to start and Tongning still hadn't arrived. So, the three people in the office were quite angry. Principal, as you can see, the parents haven't even arrived yet. How am I supposed to take this lying down? The principal rubbed his chin awkwardly. Director Yuan, don't be angry. Let's wait a little longer. What are we waiting for? My son is still in the hospital, yet I still have to wait for the two murderers? I've already made it clear. If the two rascals don't leave, I will withdraw my investment from the school. Director Yuan, please calm down. The principal was in a difficult situation. How about this? I'll send the twins home first. What do you mean send them home? They'll be directly expelled and even criticized. Like parents, like children. That's not wrong at all. The woman was in her 30s, but she looked old. Perhaps it was because she was too angry, but when one looked at her, they felt she was old and ugly. Not long after, the principal received a phone call from the homeroom teacher informing him that the twins' parents were about to arrive. So he asked the principal to first ask the chubby boy's parents if they had any requests. Requests? My request is to beat her two sons up. Is that possible? I bet she doesn't know how precious my sons are. She wants to settle this with compensation, but can she afford to pay for my sons? Without at least $2 to $3 million, she can forget about settling this matter privately. At this time, the homeroom teacher was ordered to receive the twins' parents. Of course, she looked at them unwillingly. Normally, the twins loved to cause trouble, but their parents didn't do anything. As a result, she didn't get anything out of it. So, how could she be happy? A moment later, the form teacher spotted Tongning's car at the entrance. It was an ordinary black car. From the looks of it, it didn't seem like a rich person. No wonder. The homeroom teacher snorted. Then he saw a long-legged woman wearing sunglasses getting out of the car. Are you Kevin's form teacher? Tongning asked as she approached the woman. I am. You're Kevin's mother, right? Follow me. She never imagined that a superstar like Tongning would drive such an ordinary car. The corners of Tongning's lips curved upwards. She didn't say a word as she followed the form teacher towards the principal's office. Kevin's mom, Director Yuan, is asking the school to expel Kevin bro because the impact of the incident is too bad. Plus, this kind of disgraceful record might follow Kevin bro for the rest of his life. My advice is to not make a big deal out of this, so what? Tongning asked curiously. We can talk about this in private. But, we need to make things a little more convenient. As soon as the form teacher said this, Tongning finally understood what she was trying to say. She was blatantly trying to get some benefits from Tongning. It turned out, the school's gardeners were all hardworking. Of course, Tongning understood that this was only an individual case, and did not represent the entire community. I don't think that's necessary, Tongning smiled. After being directly rejected by Tongning, the form teacher's expression turned even uglier. In that case, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to keep the twins at the parent-teacher conference. You don't need to worry about that, the form teacher scoffed. The homeroom teacher scoffed, but Tongning did not mind. A moment later, the two arrived at the principal's office. Through the door, Tongning could hear the chubby boy's mother spouting nonsense. She said either the school would expel the two brothers, or they would demand $2 million in compensation. Hearing this, Tongning smiled as she pushed open the door and walked in. Sorry I'm late. As soon as the chubby boy's mother saw the woman in sunglasses, she rolled her eyes. Meanwhile, the principal politely approached Tongning to shake her hand. Hello, parent. Welcome to our home. Tongning stretched out her right hand to shake the principal's hand as she removed her sunglasses with her left hand. "Hello, principal. I am Tongning." Tongning. Hearing this name, everyone in the meeting room was stunned. As for the form teacher, she turned around in surprise and looked at Tongning. After confirming that she was the real Tongning on TV, she was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. "I never expected Miss Tongning to be so beautiful in real life. Thank you." After speaking, Tongning sat down and stared at the chubby boy's mother with her eyes wide open. "Miss Yuan, I would like to apologize on behalf of my son. But isn't the expulsion a bit too much? I won't deny that my son was rude, but didn't your son knock over my son's cake first?" Tongning directly fired back at the woman. Was she a school board member? Was she rich? Tongning had purposely driven a limited edition car today. But the clumsy form teacher did not recognize it. She even carried a limited edition handbag with her. From head to toe, there was not a single part of her body that wasn't luxurious. She wanted to see how rich this woman was. Director Yuan scanned Tongning from head to toe. With just one glance, she felt her pride take a hit. Tongning looked too noble, like a princess. But what did she look like? She looked like an uncultured nouveau riche. "Principal, I sent my son here because I was interested in the quality of the teachers here. But as soon as he entered the school, he was bullied twice because his classmate's mother was powerful. I'm sure you know who I am. We simply wanted to keep a low profile." Tongning looked at the principal with a piercing gaze. The principal quickly apologized. "I'm sorry. Miss Tongning, I just hope you won't reveal this matter to the public. Let's resolve it in private." "It's okay, my son was wrong. Since I'm here today, I'm already prepared to be revealed." Chapter 1158. "Miss Tang, this is just a quarrel between children. Why are you making a big deal out of it?" "I don't want to make a big deal out of it. But because he fought back against bullying, my son is about to be expelled. As a mother, how am I supposed to accept this?" Tongning asked. "To be honest, principal, my husband originally wanted to come over today, but I told him that it was a small matter between children. Otherwise." The principal understood what Tongning was trying to say. If Mo Ting was here, he wouldn't have given anyone a chance to explain themselves either. He would have beaten them up first. "Miss Tang, thank you. Thank you so much for not telling President Mo about this. It was really just a quarrel between children. Who said anything about expelling Kevin and his brother? There was no such thing." "Really? But I also heard that they will have to pay $2 million as compensation." Tongning laughed. "I was just about to say, even if one of my artists were to get a new nose, it wouldn't cost $2 million. Let alone, Director Yuan's son's nose was only scratched." Director Yuan was just joking. "Miss Tang, don't take it to heart." The principal stood in the middle and tried to mediate. "I didn't come here today to bully anyone. I'm here to apologize on behalf of my son. Firstly, he was indeed in the wrong. I won't deny this. But Chairman Yuan, shouldn't you reflect on your son's behavior in school? Shouldn't you discipline him a little? Secondly, Director Yuan's son was indeed injured. The Mo family has already paid for his medical fees at the hospital. We have also paid for your son's subsequent checkups in advance. If there's anything else that you're not satisfied with, feel free to tell me. But $2 million. Forgive me for being straightforward, but I can give it to you if you dare to ask for it." After hearing Tongning's words, who would dare to ask for it? Director Yuan could take away $2 million, but Tongning could also destroy her reputation in Beijing. No matter how she looked at it, this wasn't a good deal. So no matter how dissatisfied Director Yuan was, she had no choice but to nod her head. "You've already done enough. Chairman Yuan, you said it yourself. Director Yuan didn't get anything out of this, so she wanted to leave." But Tongning suddenly spoke up and stopped her. "Please wait, Director Yuan. I've settled my son's debt, but what about yours?" Director Yuan looked at Tongning in shock. She didn't quite understand that Tongning had always been polite before resorting to force. "If I find out that your son is bullying another person at school, I won't go easy on him because of his young age. If this gets exposed, Don't blame me for not warning you beforehand. At this moment, Tongning's expression was cold and sharp, not allowing anyone to refute. What else Director Yuan could do? She could only leave in anger. No matter how uncomfortable she felt, what could she do to Tongning? Seeing this, the principal and the homeroom teacher standing at the door started to feel a chill down their spines. If they knew that those two brothers had such a strong background, they wouldn't have courted death like this. Now, do you know what it means to suffer the consequences of one's own actions? The one who was the most humiliated was the twins' form teacher. Just a moment ago, he had shamelessly threatened Tongning. Thinking of this, Tongning said, "Principal, your employee just asked me for some benefits. She said this matter can be resolved privately." When the principal heard this, his face immediately turned red with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Miss Tang. I will deal with this matter seriously." How could a mere gardener do such a shameless thing and treat the school as a place for profit? I wonder how much she has done behind the scenes. So, I suggest that the school investigate this matter thoroughly. After hearing Tongning's words, the form teacher immediately knelt on the floor and begged, "Miss Tang, I really didn't know Kevin was your son. But we're not talking about my son right now. We're talking about your ethics as a teacher." Tongning snorted. "Don't worry, Miss Tang. I will handle this matter properly and give you a satisfactory answer. Principal, I hope you don't forget the school's mission. Also, I hope you can keep my identity a secret. All I want is for my two sons to continue keeping a low profile." After saying her final words, Tongning stood up and left the school. Her appearance today was like giving the headmaster, who had lived for half his life, a real lesson. One should always keep their eyes open. Just because someone kept a low profile, they shouldn't assume that they had no background. In the end, the matter was resolved by the principal announcing to everyone that the twins' parents had reached an agreement with the chubby boys' parents, so the decision to expel them was cancelled. Everyone was astonished, especially the teachers. This was because this Director Yuan was one of the school directors they hated the most. Whenever her son was the slightest bit unhappy, she would report it to the higher-ups. Especially when she knew that her son liked to play pranks, she would never take the initiative to apologize. Instead, she would force others to bow to her. This time, it seemed that she had hit a nail on the head. Otherwise, according to her personality, there was no way she would make a compromise. What was even stranger was the fact that the school immediately issued an expulsion notice. This was because a certain homeroom teacher had used her position to seek personal benefits. After being caught, she had no way of denying it, so she had no choice but to leave the school. As for this homeroom teacher, she was the homeroom teacher of the Mo siblings. All the teachers felt that the twins were definitely going to be expelled. After all, Director Yuan was hard to deal with. Who would have thought? The result would be completely unexpected. Of course, because the principal had promised Tongning that he wouldn't reveal her identity to anyone. Everyone assumed that the twins were being protected by a mysterious force. No one had any idea that their parents were actually Tongning and Mo Ting. As a result, their lives continued to move forward in peace. After the matter was resolved, the twins felt the greatness of their mommy and were extremely happy. However, that day after school, Mo Zishi's originally happy mood was replaced by sadness when he saw little Eggshell at the school gates. Why did the little missy suddenly ignore them? Mo Zishi looked at his brother, while Mo Zichin looked at his older brother in disdain. Why was he so useless? If she doesn't care about you, then you don't need to care about her either. Little Eggshell had actually spotted the twins from afar, and heard that they were almost expelled. But in order not to put her mother in a difficult position, Little Eggshell controlled her urge to comfort them and left the school. Chapter 1159. When the mother and daughter returned home, they bumped into Elder Nangong. Seeing Little Eggshell's depressed expression, Elder Mo asked Su Yuran, "What's wrong with Kai Er?" "He must have argued with his classmates at school," Su Yuran explained. "Hurry up and get some rest." Elder Nangong waved his hand. Then the mother and daughter entered the bedroom. Did he quarrel with his classmates or with the two kids of the Mo family? Old man Nangong's expression was hard to read. After Su Yuran went into the kitchen to tidy up, he knocked on Little Eggshell's door and asked gently, "Can great-grandfather come in?" Little Eggshell was in the middle of doing her homework. When she saw the old man, she looked a little timid, but she still nodded her head. "Please come in." "Kai. Or can you tell great-grandfather why you're unhappy today?" Little Eggshell thought for a few seconds and replied, "Great-grandfather, can't Kai play with the boys? But Kai likes them." "Of course." Elder Nangong patted Little Eggshell on the head. "Great-grandfather allows you to play with them, but this is a secret between you and great-grandfather. Can you not tell your parents? Otherwise great-grandfather will lose face." When Little Eggshell heard this, her tears finally turned into a smile. "Great-grandpa, let's pinky swear." At that moment, Su Yuran and Nangong Quan had no idea that Elder Nangong was using Little Eggshell to threaten the Mo brothers. Although Mo Ting was already aware that Elder Nangong was secretly contacting the Americans, Elder Nangong reacted quickly. In order to prevent Mo Ting from receiving any more news, he made sure to contact the American Film and Television Agency, even more secretive. Therefore, on the surface, the old man appeared to be very kind, but behind the scenes, in order to be able to take revenge, he could not wait to pave all the way. Filming for The Ant Queen 2 continued in full swing. At least, up until this point, no one knew that Elder Nangong had already sold parts of The Ant Queen 2 to the US and assembled them into a new story. As for what kind of good show would be released next year, they would have to wait and see. Not long after, Bai Jun announced that filming for the first part of Parasite was nearing completion, and that the original Glory team had already begun post-production. Out of everyone on set, Elder Nangong was the most satisfied with Glory's discovery. After all, this was a team that Tong Ning had personally trained. To be able to snatch it over was a huge win for him. Afterwards, the production team for Parasite continued to promote the film. Watching the footage from the shoot, the public had reason to believe that Springfall would become Hai Rui's strongest competitor in the sci-fi industry. Of course, for film fans, this was the best news they could get. At this time, Hai Rui's top singer, Song Linlin, was exposed to the scandal of interfering in someone else's marriage. On top of that, a large number of indecent photos were posted online. In just one night, she was on the headlines of all the major newspapers. Song Linlin could be considered a senior in the music industry. She had always kept a low profile, but this time, the scandal was exposed because she was tricked by the first wife. It didn't take long before Hai Rui began their PR. But too many photos had been leaked and most netizens had already seen them. So it was impossible to clarify the matter. Inside Hai Rui's meeting room, the higher-ups were holding an emergency meeting. Of course, the meeting wasn't about a singer like Song Linlin. It was about the man that she had interfered with, the son-in-law of a domestic boxing champion. That night, the man was sent to the hospital by the boxing champion. The Fist King's daughter, who was the original wife in this case, was famous for being a shrew and a vengeful woman. Take Song Linlin as an example. She wanted to destroy Song Linlin's reputation with her own hands, so that she could vent her anger. But exposing Song Linlin did not make her feel any better. After all, Hai Rui's PR targeted Song Linlin, and helped her regain a lot of her dignity. Firstly, Hai Rui expressed that they weren't biased towards their own artists and told Song Linlin to resolve everything on her own. Secondly, Song Linlin released her letters and chat records to the public to clarify that she had been tricked. The other party told her that they had already divorced, and even showed her the divorce papers. Thirdly, private photos were considered private. Since they were revealed, she admitted that she was unlucky. But she didn't think that revealing someone else's privacy was honorable. In the end, she generously donated all her savings to charity, which was equivalent to giving away all her money. In other words, she paid a price in exchange for the forgiveness of others. As a result, the number of people cursing her was indeed reduced by half. Hai Rui is just a place to store trash. How could a jerk like her become a queen? Although Song Linlin's incident was like a small ripple on a calm lake for Hai Rui, it angered the person involved, Miss Bai Qingyi. As the daughter of the world's boxing champion, her family was rich and had already accumulated over $10 billion. Now that Hai Rui had offended her, she was going to hold a grudge against them. Because of this, Bai Qingyi contacted Hai Rui and called Mo Ting's secretary. President, the daughter of the world's boxing champion, Miss Bai, would like to invite you to dinner. After hearing from his secretary, Mo Ting immediately realized that the incident had something to do with Song Linlin. But whether it was before or after his marriage, he didn't like to see women on his own. So with Tongning around, he needed to avoid arousing suspicion. Ask Miss Bai what she wants. Tell her that I don't have the time, and that I can ask you to pass on the message. Yes, President. Mo Ting's reply naturally angered Bai Qingyi even more. She simply told Hai Rui not to get involved, and that she would expose Song Linlin's incident. But she never expected that Mo Ting would treat her so coldly. As someone who had been born with a silver spoon in her mouth, how could she endure such humiliation? Afterwards, Bai Qingyi said to Mo Ting's secretary over the phone, President Mo is going to regret this. Song Linlin had already paid the price for her actions. Although she managed to salvage some of the criticism after the press conference, she had still been reduced from a queen to a slut. So, if she wanted to go out and do some events now, she would only be embarrassing herself. However, Bai Qingyi felt that without Hai Rui's protection, Song Linlin would be a street rat that everyone wanted to beat up. Since others wanted to make her unhappy, why should she make them happy? Afterwards, Mo Ting returned home and discussed Bai Qingyi's phone call with Tongning. Tongning laughed. Aren't you afraid that the daughter of the boxing champion will hold a grudge against us? There are already enough people that hold a grudge against us. I don't care about one more. After all, Song Linlin belonged to Hai Rui, so Mo Ting naturally had to protect her. If he were to hand her over, wouldn't his authority as the CEO of Hai Rui be completely gone? Chapter 1160. Hearing this, Tongning nodded her head. No matter what, I would never betray my own artist. Of course, she was certain that Song Linlin had been tricked by someone else, just like how they protected Hu Jingjing in the past. But we can't offend the daughter of a boxing champion for no reason. This time, Tongning stood in Mo Ting's shoes and thought for him. You may be used to it and don't care, but the person Song Linlin offended this time isn't a normal person. He is one of the titans of the sports world. Plus, I've heard about Bai Qingyi before. She's famous for her explosive temper and her methods. If it's not convenient for you to see her, then I'll go. What do you think? Mo Ting opened his eyes and looked at Tongning. With you around, you're already considerate enough. Tongning was a woman and women were naturally emotional and meticulous. Now that Elder Nangong had his eyes on them, it was best for them to avoid provoking any more enemies in case they formed an alliance. But since Hai Rui has been in Beijing for so many years, we're not afraid of any threats. You need to believe that everyone at Hai Rui has been through a lot. But if you want to see her, then go ahead. If you get bullied, I won't let it go. Do you think I'll be at a disadvantage? Tongning laughed. Because of this, Song Linlin had already semi-retired and her career was completely ruined. As the victim, she suffered more than the cheater who cheated on her. Yet Bai Qingyi still refused to let go. Lu Che specially paid a visit to the Bai family home. As soon as he entered the maze-like villa complex, he found Bai Qingyi playing golf on the lawn. Assistant Lu, go back and tell your madam that when I called Hai Rui previously, President Mo didn't do me the favor of doing me a favor. So I'm not going to stick my nose out anymore. I will handle Song Linlin's matter as I see fit. Hai Rui doesn't need to worry about you. I refuse to believe that Hai Rui will stick their nose into someone else's business 24/7. Miss Bai, Song Linlin has already paid a heavy price. Do you think she's suffered a heavy price for seducing a married man? Bai Qingyi humphed. Go back and ask your madam how she dealt with Han Yufan and Mo Euro back then. I'm her fan. There's nothing about her that I don't know. Speaking of which, I learned it from your madam. But the problem was that Song Linlin was also a victim. All in all, Lu Che's invitation was a failure. He failed to invite Bai Qingyi as Tongning had hoped. I can understand how she feels, but the nature of this matter is different. Forget it. Rather than wasting time on Bai Qingyi, why don't we let Song Linlin stay at the agency for the time being? At least she'll be safe there. Yes, madam. Lu Che replied respectfully. Go home and take care of Long Jia more often. With the mention of Long Jia, a smile appeared on Lu Che's face. Don't worry, now that my father is helping take care of our daughter, Xiaoman won't be tired. Tongning nodded her head in satisfaction. When I have time, I will go visit her. As for the incident with Song Linlin, the thing that Tongning couldn't understand the most was that Bai Qingyi seemed to be very lenient towards her husband. Even when she released the photos, she was considerate of her husband's face and made sure to censor the photos. Moreover, even after her husband was sent to the hospital by her father, she did not blame him at all. Instead, she continued to pursue Song Linlin. Because of this, Tongning suspected that Song Linlin was lying. Although it wasn't necessary for her to get involved in a small artist's matter, since she was already involved, she still wanted to resolve the matter properly. So, while she had some free time, Tongning went to see Song Linlin. The famous singer had locked herself up at home, surrounded by smoke, and had no idea how to take care of herself. I'm sorry, Madam CEO. I never expected to see you here. After speaking, Song Linlin sat back down on the sofa and continued to smoke to numb herself. Why are you doing this? Tongning asked. I heard that Bai Qingyi contacted the president, but he didn't hand me over. I'm really upset. Tongning, I'd rather you guys hand me over, Song Linlin said as tears rolled down her face. I've been with Hai Rui for so many years and I'm already satisfied. Since you've been with Hai Rui for so many years, you should know that Mo Ting doesn't allow anyone to do as they please within his sphere of influence. If he can't even protect an artist, how can he lead Hai Rui? But I don't think I'm worth it. I'm so dirty. Song Linlin pointed to the photos that had been leaked. I really don't know why those photos exist. I also didn't know that the jerk hasn't gotten a divorce yet. In order to lie to me, he even forged a divorce certificate. I'm so stupid. You may be stupid, but don't forget, Hu Jingjing was even more stupid than you were in the past. Yet, didn't she manage to survive and live a good life? Tongning comforted Song Linlin. What you need to do now is not to blame yourself, but to make the jerk pay the price. You may feel shameful for being the third wheel, but everyone's life should be valued. Don't think too highly of yourself. I never knew that the Madam CEO would care about the feelings of a small artist like us. Song Linlin laughed in ridicule. Aren't you afraid of becoming enemies with the Bai family? The main reason I came here today was to confirm that you weren't lying to us. Tongning stood up and replied. Since you didn't do anything wrong, then that's all that matters. By the way, it's not that I want to care about small artists like you. Right now, the Nangong family is eyeing Hai Rui. I don't want to make enemies for Hai Rui because of you. You're doing this for President Mo. Tidy yourself up a bit, Tongning said before she left Song Linlin's home. Song Linlin did not listen to Tongning's words. Not long after, the doorbell rang again. She originally thought Tongning had returned, but to her surprise, someone covered her head and gave her a beating. This is what you get for seducing a man. This is what you get for seducing someone else's husband. Song Linlin didn't know how she survived the past 10 minutes. But, after the person that hit her left, she realized there was a pool of blood beneath her. She had a miscarriage. That's right, who cared if she lived or died? In everyone's eyes, she was a cheap third party. Everyone wanted her dead, so who cared if she was tricked or not? But when she thought about Hai Rui, when she thought about the big family, she felt a sense of warmth. Plus, if she created another scandal, Hai Rui would have to step out and clarify things. With this thought, she immediately gave her doctor a phone call and instructed her to make a house call in secret and not to alert anyone. Tongning was right. Even if she were to die, she couldn't cause any more trouble for Hai Rui. At least, as the head of the family, Mo Ting had never done anything wrong to her. Chapter 1161. Song Linlin was beaten up, so Tongning instructed her manager to report it to Hai Rui. At the very least, she wanted Hai Rui's PR to be aware of her current situation, so they wouldn't be clueless when the media questioned them. Bai Qingyi was indeed heavy-handed. After all, for her, Teaching a female artist a lesson was a piece of cake. Neither Hai Rui nor Tongning could protect Song Linlin at all times. So this became a nightmare for her. She had been cheated on, she was physically and mentally crippled, and her career had been destroyed. Song Linlin felt that there was no woman in the world that had it worse than her. On top of that, there was also Bai Qingyi, who was relentlessly chasing after her. Song Linlin really wanted to die right now. After Tongning found out about the incident, she once again visited Song Linlin's home. Seeing her lying in bed with multiple injuries on her body, she was shocked. "I'll just leave for a while. If Bai Qingyi wants to kill me, there's nothing you can do to stop her. That is, unless you protect me 24/7. Song Linlin laughed at herself. "Tongning, why don't you just hand me over? That way, I might feel a little better." "Hand you over? You seem to be underestimating Hai Rui." Tongning replied fiercely. "I've already asked Lu Che to arrange for 2 bodyguards to temporarily protect you. If anything happens, immediately contact the bodyguards. At least, you won't have to suffer any physical pain. But, aren't you going against the Bai clan? Didn't you say that you were afraid of making enemies for President Mo? Just because I'm afraid of making enemies doesn't mean I have to give in to a matter of principle," Tongning said in seriousness. "I've always. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them." Song Linlin chuckled as she continued. "But you have no way of getting involved in this matter. Plus, Tongning, on the surface you may appear cold and distant, but I know you are a passionate person on the inside. You are willing to do anything for your friends. Only a lucky person can be your friend. You don't need to sigh. Bai Qingyi has ways to cause trouble for you, but I also have ways to make her lose. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you can do whatever you want." According to Bai Qingyi's method of causing trouble, it seemed like she wanted to force Song Linlin to her death. Otherwise, not many normal people would be able to withstand her coercion and beatings. But what about her scum of a husband? Originally, Bai Qingyi was the victim, but now everything seemed to have changed. Even if Song Linlin had unknowingly hurt her, it wasn't a reason for her to kill Song Linlin. This kind of fighting style was clearly trying to take someone's life. After visiting Song Linlin, Tongning returned to Hai Rui and entered Mo Ting's office. Without a word, she sat down on the sofa. Mo Ting sensed her aura, so he raised his head and asked, "Are your injuries serious?" "It's not serious, she's half dead," Tongning replied. "Ting, Bai Qingyi has crossed the line." From Bai Qingyi's point of view, it was natural for her to teach the mistress a lesson. But she had to have her own bottom line. Back then, even though she hated Han Yufan and Mo Euro so much, she never physically hurt them. Because she knew, it was impossible to conquer their hearts. Of course, Bai Qingyi didn't seem to care. She just wanted to make herself happy. "In that case, what do you want to do?" Mo Ting asked gently. "Or do you want to do things the same as before?" Of course. The couple's conversation was simple and clear because they understood each other. Mo Ting knew what Tongning wanted to do, and Tongning wanted his support. The couple hit it off. Since Song Linlin was still an artist of Hai Rui had the responsibility to ensure her safety. Since Bai Qingyi didn't know when to stop, Tongning had no choice but to give her a tooth for a tooth. So what if she was the daughter of a boxing champion? She had to deal with the things that needed to be dealt with. When had they ever been afraid of anyone? So Tongning decided to plan a special PR campaign for Bai Qingyi. It was similar to what she did at Superstar Media. She was going to pretend that Song Linlin was at her lowest point, and she was going to pull her out of the abyss. Because of this, Tongning, Fong Yu and Hai Rui's PR team held a meeting in the conference room. This incident will be dealt with in 3 steps. First, we will announce to the entire internet that Song Linlin did not deliberately interfere in someone else's marriage. We will also post the records of her conversation with the jerk as evidence. Second, we need to divert the public's attention onto the jerk. This is the price he should pay. After everyone's attention is focused on the jerk, we will announce that Bai Qingyi hired someone to hurt Song Linlin. Third, and the most important step, if the boxing champion wants to suppress the news, we will make Bai Qingyi a hot topic for a week. If Bai Qingyi comes out crying and claims that she made the wrong decision because she was too sad, We will arrange for an interview with Song Linlin and reveal to the public that Bai Qingyi threatened her. Although this incident involves someone from the sports industry, and they have brought glory to the country, it's not something they can use to do evil. The advantage of doing this is that exposing the incident to the public will prevent Bai Qingyi from making a move on Song Linlin again. Lastly, the entertainment industry and Hai Rui aren't people that she can mess around with just because she wants to. After hearing Tong Ning's words, Fang Yu nodded his head. Springfall has grown in scale and has been eyeing us like a tiger. So we need to be firm on this matter. No one can shake the position of the big boss. Afterwards, Fang Yu made arrangements for the execution of his plan. Meanwhile, Tong Ning had to pay attention to Bai Qingyi and the boxing champion and figure out their intentions. At the Nangong family home, after Elder Nangong heard about Hai Rui's troubles, he couldn't help but smile. If it was any other agency, they would have given up on a small artist a long time ago. Today, a queen has fallen, but tomorrow, another will rise. After hearing Elder Nangong's words, Nangong Quan naturally disagreed. One of the main reasons why Hai Rui has gotten to where it is today is because of the unity of the entire organization. Although she's just a small artist, Hai Rui has never thought about giving up on her. That's why other artists see themselves in her. This is also the reason why they have never left Hai Rui over the years, regardless of the artist's status. Mo Ting manages Hai Rui with friendship. You make it sound nice, but he's also offended a lot of people, Elder Nangong humphed. Competition in the industry is unavoidable. Who can be so slick? It's because Hai Rui maintains justice that he's special. You seem to agree with the Mo family. How do you manage Hai Rui? Elder Nangong understood the meaning behind Nangong Quan's words, so he was a little displeased. That's the truth. After saying this, Nangong Quan turned and left, leaving Elder Nangong's artist to drink in the living room. Chapter 1162. Does Mo Ting think that he can succeed in everything he does? Let's see how they perform this time. No matter who won or lost, it was a good opportunity for him to recover. Wasn't it better to let others fight amongst themselves? Above all, he had prepared 2 big gifts for the Mo family, and was waiting for them to accept them. He wasn't a heartless person, so he wasn't going to kick them when they were down. So he was going to wait until Song Linlin's matter was over before he presented the gifts to the Mo family. Meanwhile, Nangong Quan knew that it was difficult to agree with Elder Nangong, so he avoided the topic. This was the key to maintaining a peaceful relationship with the old man. As long as it wasn't a matter of principle, he would take a step back. Of course, Little Eggshell and Su Yuran were an exception. After working that night, Nangong Quan returned to his bedroom. As soon as he saw Su Yuran packing her clothes, he couldn't help but hug her from behind. A moment ago, I overheard your conversation with grandfather. Grandfather wants the Mo family to close down. Yet you said things that he doesn't like to hear. Su Yuran was afraid that the grandfather and grandson would get into a fight. I was simply stating the truth. When running a company, the biggest taboo is to be arrogant and laugh at others. Even if someone is in trouble, we should see how they solve the problem, Nangong Quan replied calmly. Actually, this is the biggest gap between you and grandfather because you don't hate the Mo family. You don't hate the Mo family, Su Yuran said as she removed his suit jacket and placed it to the side. I don't hate them either. But we still need to consider grandfather's feelings. Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that grandfather shouldn't make a move on the Mo family at a time like this. Perhaps, Elder Nangong would start thinking about revenge as he watched the drama unfold. Who could say for sure? Regardless of everything else, Hai Rui decided to retract their gentle approach and deliver a strict PR response. Firstly, just like Tong Ning said, Hai Rui teamed up with all the major media outlets to release a notice with the headline, Song Linlin is not a mistress. Although it sounded like they were trying to forcefully clear her name, this overwhelming method of instilling information into the public was enough to make them understand the main point. Firstly, Song Linlin had evidence to prove that she had been tricked. Secondly, the scumbag didn't say a word from start to finish. He hid behind the woman like a coward. As a result, There was a new direction for discussion about Song Linlin leaving the orbiter. As for why this matter had caused such an uproar, it was entirely because the other party was a boxing champion and involved the world of sports. Now Hai Rui had shifted their focus onto the jerk. Meanwhile, the onlookers cooperated and called the jerk out. In a relationship, an innocent woman comes out to give up her family's assets and takes on all the responsibilities, but the man stays at home and doesn't say a word. Although Song Linlin was in the wrong, she was still one of the victims. She even forged a divorce certificate. How could a woman not fall for it? Scumbag, come out and say something. You ruined someone else's life, yet you're hiding like this. You're worse than a beast. Of course, they couldn't rule out the possibility that Hai Rui had set the pace for the current situation. But this was the correct way of thinking, wasn't it? How could the world be so forgiving towards men? He was obviously the one that hurt two women, yet the two innocent women had to bear the consequences for him. The entire world was talking about a female singer that intervened in someone else's marriage. Why couldn't the headlines be about a scumbag that tricked a woman? With Hai Rui's guidance, the direction of public opinion had indeed changed. At least, Song Linlin's identity as a victim was accurate. Tongning wanted everyone to know that the person they once called a slut and accused of being a slut was also a victim. So, they could naturally feel guilt from the bottom of their hearts. It didn't take long before Bai Qingyi felt the warm greetings from Hai Rui. As a result, her desire to win was naturally ignited. This is quite interesting. Hai Rui wouldn't even let a mere artist off the hook. But now that she thought about it, it seemed like she hadn't actually gone to get even with the jerk. If Hai Rui didn't mention it, she would have simply gone to cause trouble for Song Linlin. Meanwhile, Bai Qingyi's husband was currently in the hospital. Because his ribs had been broken by the boxing champion, he had no choice but to rest in bed. From the looks of it, you've recovered quite well. Bai Qingyi handed her husband a bowl of chicken soup. If you're feeling well, you should leave the hospital. The media is currently all over the hospital waiting for you. Bai Qingyi, what do you want to do? Just say it. Don't beat around the bush. Aren't you tired? The slightly chubby man asked as he stared at Bai Qingyi. Perhaps it was because he was getting on in years, but it wasn't hard to tell from the heroic spirit in his eyes that he was indeed handsome when he was younger. You're quite direct this time. Do you know why I went out to look for someone else? It's because you think you're God because you're acting like this. Bai Qingyi hated chewing gum the most. So after hearing this, she directly spat it in her husband's face. Leave the hospital. The entire world is waiting for you to give an explanation. Song Linlin claims that she's innocent, and that you've completely tricked her. What do you think? The man lowered his head and did not say a word. Song Linlin was indeed tricked by him. From the moment he started courting Song Linlin, he had already told her that he was divorced. Right now, the entire world is calling you a jerk for hurting two women. Let's see what you're going to do. The man laughed in ridicule. And replied, if I had to choose, I would naturally choose Linlin. At least, she treats me with sincerity and I truly love her. Even if I lose my reputation, I will protect Linlin. Are you sure? Bai Qingyi laughed. Aren't you afraid that your agency's secrets will be exposed? What are you planning to do? Since you're my husband, you should help me, Bai Qingyi laughed. After all, we are husband and wife. The man's expression was ugly. It was obvious that he wanted to escape from Bai Qingyi's clutches. After living in Bai Qingyi's shadow for so many years, he was already tired. Right now, Song Linlin is going around saying that you lied to her, and that she's also a victim. I want you to go out and tell the media that Song Linlin knew that you weren't divorced, and that she fabricated the chat records so that she could get out of this mess. She's just a female singer. How could she compare to your wife? Bai Qingyi said in a domineering manner. I know you'll handle it well. Chapter 1163. What if I don't agree? Bai Qingyi's husband laughed in self-mockery. If you don't agree? Then, you may have to stay in this hospital for the rest of your life. Bai Qingyi threatened with a smile. I won't force you. The choice is yours. The man fell silent and did not say another word. After all, he had gotten used to it over the years. Bai Qingyi didn't treat the people around her like human beings. She could do whatever she wanted to them. I must have been blind to have married you. Bai Qingyi, I hope you die a horrible death. Bai Qingyi smiled and did not say another word. She knew that the man had already given in. In a moment, the reporters will come in to interview you. Remember what I told you. At this moment, no matter how unwilling the man was, he couldn't go against Bai Qingyi. After all, he couldn't even guarantee his own safety, so what right did he have to speak up for Song Linlin? So when faced with all the cameras, he had no choice but to make up a story. I have nothing to say about other things. I was indeed cheating, but I never lied to Song Linlin. If you don't believe me, you can check her chat records. They are all fake. Actually, she already knew from the start that I wasn't divorced. You only need to know a little bit to find out. How could she possibly think that I was divorced? Faced with the man's response, Bai Qingyi sat by his bedside with a smile. Because in this matter, she was truly the victim. At least, that was what everyone thought. As for the man's response, it quickly became a trending topic. But this made the situation even more interesting. Song Linlin said that she had no idea that she had been tricked, while Bai Qingyi's husband said that she knew everything, and that she was simply putting on an act. As a result, the two of them began to fight back and forth. As a result, the entire incident turned into a common rashomon. At this moment, the waters were once again muddied. Regardless of whether Song Linlin knew or not, the damage that she had done to Bai Qingyi was still huge. Now, she was arguing with the jerk. It was obvious that they were pushing the blame onto each other. Let's see how Hai Rui is going to clear her name. Bai Qingyi humphed. She's just a small artist. Leave it to me and this matter will be over. But Hai Rui doesn't know what's good for them. Why are they pretending to be the good guy? Tongning, I've learned from you how ruthless you are. Since that's the case, then enjoy the negative effects of this matter. Inside Mo Ting's office, Tongning had already seen the media's interview with the jerk. She then turned off her phone and asked her husband, Ting. This is the recording pen that Lu Che brought back from the hospital. Mo Ting placed the pen on the table. This is basically the same as what Lu Che previously found. This man has been living in Bai Qingyi's shadow for a long time. In fact, when he was beaten awake this time, he even considered calling the police. From the recording, I can tell that as long as the man is safe, he will be eager to escape from Bai Qingyi. Have you arranged everything? I've already arranged it yesterday. From the moment Song Linlin's PR plan was decided, Mo Ting had already instructed Lu Che to follow up on Bai Qingyi's husband. Lu Che's men waited at the hospital for quite some time. In the end, they managed to get their hands on the conversation between the couple. Afterwards, Hai Rui released a few medical reports on Song Linlin's injuries. They claimed that Bai Qingyi had attacked Song Linlin, causing her to be covered in injuries and broken ribs. Although many people felt that it was reasonable for the wife to find someone to teach the mistress a lesson, and that Hai Rui shouldn't have brought it up, some people also felt that Bai Qingyi was too ruthless. But some people felt that Bai Qingyi was too ruthless. Of course, Bai Qingyi did as she always did and pretended that nothing had happened. What lesson? Do I need to find someone to teach her a lesson? What status do I have and what does she have? Even though I'm angry, I have no intention of causing trouble for her. Didn't you see? Even though my husband treated me like this, I've never gotten angry at him. By the way, are you sure that she didn't direct and put on an act? I've already tolerated enough of my husband cheating. I never thought that I would have to endure this kind of humiliation. Bai Qingyi was good at putting on an act, but it wasn't because she was forced. She simply loved acting. When the media heard her cry, they naturally felt a little pity for her. After all, she was the daughter of a sports star and came from a wealthy family. So there was no need for her to cause trouble for Song Linlin and lower her status. It seems like every cell in her body is playing along with her act. Tongning laughed as she watched the video of Bai Qingyi's interview. After watching Bai Qingyi's interview, Tongning couldn't help but laugh. If she joined the industry, I'm sure no one would be able to compete with her for the title of Best Actress. Bai Qingyi was different from others. It was in her nature to like things that were fake. Lu Che has already coordinated with the hospital. We'll be able to get her out tonight. Mo Ting replied as he read through some documents. I'm at the entrance of the hospital. I've contacted all the mainstream media to interview Bai Qingyi's husband. In that case, will there be a surprise tonight? Since Bai Qingyi wasn't afraid of scandals, they had no choice but to expose her. But apart from her father, who else in the world understood her the most? That was her husband. To be exact, not only Bai Qingyi, but even the boxing champion, Bai Qingyi's husband, was going to be accused. As Song Linlin watched Tongning and Mo Ting do everything they could to help her recover, she suddenly felt a little emotional. Apart from the jerk that occasionally showed concern for her, no one else had treated her with such sincerity. If only she could be of some use. Unfortunately, there was nothing she could do at the moment. No, she really wanted to repay Tongning and Mo Ting. But she was a fallen singer. What could she do for the king and queen? With this thought, Song Linlin grabbed the pen and paper on the bedside table. Perhaps she could write a song specifically for the two of them. No, she could write the theme song for their upcoming The Ant Queen 2. But that wasn't enough. She wanted to be their professional singer. She wanted to do anything for them, to repay them for a lifetime of kindness. That way, she would at least prove that she was still of some use. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Bai Qingyi's husband was anxiously waiting for someone to pick him up. Even in his dreams, he wanted to leave Bai Qingyi, the madwoman that wrote and directed everything. He never thought about why he married a woman like her. Bai Qingyi didn't cheat or fool around, but she didn't want to live a normal life either. Plus, the things that she did always hurt him. This made him feel terrified. Chapter 1164. So as soon as he saw the understanding Song Linlin, he fell in love with her uncontrollably. He was willing to pay any price to be with her. However, he never expected that Song Linlin would end up in such a pitiful state. If he could turn back time, he would rather die than get involved with Song Linlin. After all, without him, Song Linlin would still be an A-list singer with a limitless future in Hai Rui. With this thought, he became even more determined to escape. In the middle of the night, Bai Qingyi's men were still guarding the patient's room. But the man lying on the bed was already sweating profusely. A moment later, the sound of a conversation could be heard outside the door. The man sat up in bed and saw two tall men dressed in black helping him into a wheelchair. Wait, help me bring the laptop under my bed. There are a lot of videos of me enduring domestic abuse at home. The men in black followed his instructions and handed the laptop to him. Afterwards, the three men left the hospital. At this time, Bai Qingyi's men chased after them. What are you doing? But the men in black simply turned around and glanced coldly at the man in black. With a single glance, the man in black could tell that the man in front of them wasn't someone to be trifled with. They were filled with a murderous aura. Seeing this, Bai Qingyi's husband finally let out a sigh of relief. This meant that he was about to leave that woman. He could give up everything. All he wanted now was to fight for his own freedom. In a moment, after you leave the hospital, President Mo has arranged for a large number of media outlets to interview you. You can tell them all about your grievances and provide them with evidence. The man held onto the laptop and nodded his head. Okay. Mo Ting was afraid that he would go back on his word. But of course there was another reason. He was afraid that Bai Qingyi would take action as soon as she found out that her husband had run away. Soon, the three men arrived at the entrance of the hospital. The media, who had already been notified, immediately swarmed towards them. Mr. Rong, we heard that you have some big news to reveal tonight. Mr. Rong, why did you run away from the hospital in the middle of the night? Don't panic, I will explain everything to you. The man said as he held onto the laptop tightly. The man hugged his laptop tightly as he spoke to the media. He waited for the media to establish a good order before he spoke again. Rong Xiuyuan, during the interview with the reporters today, everything I said, including accusing Song Linlin, was because I was threatened by Bai Qingyi. Song Linlin had no idea that I wasn't divorced because I had indeed forged a divorce certificate. Song Linlin has been dragged down by Bai Qingyi from the beginning. whether it's in terms of feelings or now that she's being retaliated against by Chingy. Perhaps everyone doesn't know this, but from the moment I married Chingy, this woman has never treated me like a normal man. She does whatever she wants. If I don't do what she wants, she complains to her father, and I end up getting beaten up. I know that no matter what I say, there's nothing I can do about it. But you probably don't know how much I want to get a divorce. But I don't have the courage to say it, because I get beaten and scolded at every turn. My hospitalization this time is considered light. In that case, Mr. Rong, are you trying to accuse your wife and father-in-law of domestic abuse? The reporters began to help him get to the point. Yes, the man nodded. In fact, it's been going on for years. Song Linlin didn't forge any chat records. You lied to her, didn't you? Yes, Linlin had no idea from the beginning to the end. In that case, what evidence do you have to prove that the Bai family has been abusing you? Do you know the price you will have to pay for slandering the Fist King? Evidence? Of course I have evidence. After speaking, Rong Shuyuan raised the laptop in his hands. I've saved a lot of evidence on my laptop. I will soon send it to the media and reveal the truth to the public. The media immediately snapped furiously at the laptop in his hands. After all, this incident didn't just involve Song Linlin's innocence. It also implicated the representative of the country's honor, boxing champion Bai Xiaoyu, for abusing someone. The man was brave. After all, he was ready to fight the Bai family to the end. But at this critical moment, Bai Qingyi arrived at the hospital after receiving a call. She squeezed past the reporters, grabbed her husband's laptop and smashed it. Everyone watched as the scene unfolded. Wasn't Bai Qingyi a weak person? Why did she suddenly change into a different person? As she stood in front of the reporters, she did not say a word. She simply smiled sweetly. Hubby, you should take your medicine. You're quite sick. Her meaning was obvious. She asked for evidence, but now that it was destroyed, what else could she do? Bai Qingyi, you've resorted to all sorts of methods to cover up the truth. Hubby, this is a family matter. You shouldn't expose it in front of others and make a joke of yourself. Plus, is it evidence just because you say it's evidence? Who can prove it? You've already smashed the evidence, so of course there's nothing left. I'm sorry about that. Rong Shuyuan glared at Bai Qingyi. In the end, she had no choice but to say to the bodyguards behind her, "Let's go." Of course, Bai Qingyi couldn't force her husband to stay in front of the public. But she had already destroyed the evidence. She wanted to see what other tricks Hai Rui had up their sleeves. The reporters looked at the shattered laptop on the floor, and looked at Bai Qingyi in surprise. If she wasn't guilty, why was she afraid of her husband exposing the video? But because she was in such a hurry to destroy the laptop, the reporters had more reason to believe that Rong Shuyuan was telling the truth. It seemed, the plot had changed once again. Originally, Song Linlin was the one who interfered in someone else's marriage. Then, she was told that she had been deceived and the jerk accused her of lying. Now the jerk retracted all of his previous statements and accused his wife and father-in-law of domestic abuse. What was the truth? The audience was having a good time watching the show. But the problem was, the evidence in the jerk's hands had already been destroyed. In that case, there was no way to prove anything. At least, that was what Bai Qingyi believed. She had already found all of the surveillance cameras in their home and destroyed them. She refused to believe that her weak husband could still find a way to deal with her. Did he want to get a divorce and be with that slut? No way. But, was that really the case? Chapter 1165. Because of this, the Boxing King praised his daughter. Well done. He's just an inconspicuous man. My daughter can find someone better. The Boxing King was still the Boxing King, but he was too old to fight. Now he was in charge of the national team's training. But he still maintained his figure well. A weakling like Rong Shuyuan was nothing but a punching bag to him. Plus, the Boxing King had nowhere to vent his emotions. So the son-in-law that he didn't like was his garbage bin. But how could he let others know about something like this? Because of this, the two men ended up drinking wine at home. I'll just pretend that man is dead. My daughter won't have to worry about finding a good man. Bai Qingyi laughed and replied, Dad, I'm actually still with my first love. I only married Rong Shiyuan because you objected to it. But I think it's time for me to tell you everything. So you've been cheating on your son-in-law all these years? I had no choice. I needed a cover, and he was the best candidate. The Boxing King had no choice but to take a deep breath and put down the wine glass in his hand. What else can I say now that things have gotten to this point? Take care of yourself. But, you need to clean up Rong Shiyuan's mess. Yes, Dad. Clean up? Perhaps Bai Qingyi thought that, after playing around with Rong Shiyuan for so many years, she had a thorough understanding of him. So that very morning, she threw herself into the arms of her first love, and couldn't control her emotions in her first love's home. But just as the two of them were about to explode, and the media thought that they would never see Rong Shiyuan's so-called evidence again, video after video was suddenly released online. Furthermore, every video clip was exceptionally clear. They were all from the front of the Boxing King, so that everyone could see the ferocity of the world champion. Occasionally, Bai Qingyi could even be seen ridiculing him. As soon as the video was released, the onlookers were in an uproar. Oh God, is he an animal? Is he kicking his son-in-law around like a ball? I can't believe I idolized the Boxing King. I never thought he would be so cruel behind his back. Bai Qingyi is disgusting. She's kneeling on the ground and laughing at her husband after he's been beaten to this state. Oh God, this father and daughter are demons. No wonder Rong Shiyuan wants to have an affair. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to stand this pair of trash, okay? Soon, Bai Qingyi received a phone call. But as soon as she heard her father yell on the phone, she was dumbfounded. This is impossible. This is impossible. So she got up, picked up her phone, and opened the hot news. The video of the Boxing King's domestic violence had already exploded in popularity. I clearly smashed Rong Shiyuan's computer. How could that be? Speaking of which, Mo Ting had to admire Mo Ting's meticulousness. That night, when Rong Shiyuan mentioned that her computer was important, the bodyguards immediately gave Mo Ting a phone call and told him the details. At this time, Mo Ting said to the bodyguards, "Get him a new computer. Send the evidence to Hai Rui first, just in case. Also, give him a computer, and let him gain the trust of the media first." No one expected Bai Qingyi to destroy her computer, so it could be considered as her digging her own grave. Mo Ting had calculated the risks and included Bai Qingyi as well. Therefore, the video was released in its entirety. In broad daylight, Song Linlin was innocent, but the father and daughter who had resorted to domestic violence were not going to have a good time. The morning the video was released, the Boxing King was suspended from his duties. Because of this incident, he could now bid farewell to the boxing world. Bai Qingyi never imagined that this incident would cause her father to lose everything. No, not her father, but the entire Bai family. No, I learned all of this from Tongning. It can't be wrong. It can't be. The Bai family were currently surrounded by a large number of reporters. Someone even spotted Bai Qingyi leaving another man's apartment and suspected that she had an affair. As a result, the Bai family were currently in a lot of trouble and had no way of getting revenge on Song Linlin and Rong Shiyuan. After all, they couldn't even take care of themselves. As a result, Song Linlin was cleared, but she was also taught a lesson. When a woman met a bad partner and couldn't tell right from wrong, how much damage could she bring to herself? While lying in the hospital, Song Linlin watched the news. She was filled with gratitude towards Mo Ting and Tongning. She never imagined that she would have a day where she could make a comeback. Her innocence had been proven and she was also a victim. Not only that, but Lu Che also used the surveillance footage to find the person that attacked her and proved that it was indeed Bai Qingyi who paid for the attack. So, she was now standing on the side of the victim and received a lot of sympathy. After Rong Shiyuan regained her freedom, the first thing she did was rush to the hospital to see Song Linlin. However, after this lesson, Song Linlin had seen through the fickleness of the world. All that was left in her heart was the warmth that Mo Ting and Tongning had given her. So she directly rejected Rong Shiyuan's request and told the nurse, "Please tell him not to appear in front of me again. I won't forgive him." At this time, Tongning entered the hospital room. After hearing Song Linlin's words, she smiled. Have you gotten over it? After this incident, all I want to do now is focus on writing songs. I'm really tired. It's up to you. Now that Hai Rui has reinstated you, your manager will help you plan your future. Your status will not be affected by anyone. After hearing this, Song Linlin's tears overflowed from her eyes. Tongning, I really don't know how to thank you. Is your way of thanking me by crying? I've never cried in front of anyone before. You are the first. Song Linlin explained. You and President Mo have given me a second chance at life. Live your life well from now on. Song Linlin nodded her head in seriousness. As soon as my body recovers, I will make a comeback. So, Rong Shuyuan did not get to see Song Linlin as she wished. As for Song Linlin, she did as she promised and immediately began attending events as soon as she recovered. Of course, she knew that under these circumstances, the media would have a lot of questions. But she was not afraid of the cameras. At this moment at an event. Linlin, what's your biggest feeling about making a comeback? My feeling is that Hai Rui has a good CEO and the CEO has a good wife. If it wasn't for them, the Song Linlin of today would not exist. After speaking, Song Linlin turned to the camera and gave 3 sincere bows. Chapter 1166. So for the rest of my life, I, Song Linlin, will stay with Hai Rui as long as Hai Rui needs me. Not only that, I also wrote a song for President Mo and Tongning. In a moment, I will sing it for everyone. If that's the case, does that mean tonight's event is also the venue for the release of a new song? My fans, you are in luck. Plus, Linlin said that this song is dedicated to President Mo and Tongning. Everyone will be able to enjoy it in a moment. The fans at the event erupted in cheers. Song Linlin's return allowed them to see a different female singer. In the past, Song Linlin was talented, but she always had a sense of arrogance. But after this incident, everyone could feel the vicissitudes of life and the story behind Song Linlin. She had truly matured and made people's hearts ache for her. Fans even yelled at her at the event. Don't look for a boyfriend from a rubbish heap. You are obviously so outstanding. That night, Song Linlin cried. She suddenly realized that there were still so many people that had not given up on her. Not long after, Song Linlin sang Follow. She dedicated the song to Mo Ting and Tongning. It was as if these 2 words were the perfect representation of their relationship as a married couple. The emotional and warm melody made everyone at the venue immerse themselves in the song. I never thought you would suddenly appear, so I've been fighting on my own. I thought I would be lonely until the end of the world, but you've been following closely behind me. Along with the moving notes and touching lyrics, tears began to fall from the eyes of everyone present. All of a sudden, they understood the relationship between Mo Ting and Tongning. How they relied on each other for survival. That night, Tongning and Mo Ting leaned against each other as they hugged in air and watched Song Linlin perform. Hearing the song, Tongning revealed a slight smile. She really put her heart into it. What do you think, Ting? It can be used as the main song for her new album. Mo Ting was expressionless. But using it as the main song also meant that he had acknowledged the song's status. Not long after, Follow immediately appeared on the various music charts. With a strong momentum, it swept through the entire Beijing. Song Linlin's misfortune was a blessing in disguise as she won a new career. Not only that, but she obediently handed in the theme song for The Ant Queen 2, just 2 months after her comeback. How did you know I was here? Tongning asked curiously. I told Assistant Lu to keep an eye out and notify me as soon as you return to Hai Rui. Song Linlin smiled. Consider this a gift from me to the crew. You've already given it to me. Tongning was referring to the song. That doesn't count. This is the real gift. You and President Mo, listen to the demo first. As Tongning held onto the samples, her heart was filled with mixed emotions. Who could have predicted this? Back then, she didn't help Song Linlin because of these gifts. So after putting down the demo, she said to Song Linlin, you don't need to work so hard for me and Ting. From now on, As long as you have better taste in men and don't cause any more scandals, we will be satisfied. Don't worry, it won't happen again. After Song Linlin left the office, Tongning handed the demo to Mo Ting. Give it a try. Who knows, the film might not be popular, but the theme song might be. Mo Ting looked at Tongning dotingly and handed the demo to Lu Che. He then handed it to the professionals to handle. Song Linlin was indeed considerate. Of course, by this time, the Bai family had already fallen. After being exposed to multiple scandals, the father and daughter finally shed their mask of kindness. In the end, the boxing champion was kicked out of the national team, and Bai Qingyi was found to have cheated on her husband. In fact, she was even crazier than Rong Xiuyuan, and it happened even earlier. But no matter what happened, it had nothing to do with Hai Rui and Song Linlin. After all, Tongning wasn't interested in stepping on a fallen dog. Elder Nangong watched as Hai Rui dealt with the crisis, and couldn't help but admit that Mo Ting was indeed capable. If Springfall was in their place, they definitely wouldn't be able to elevate Song Linlin to new heights. But it didn't matter as long as it didn't hinder the development of Parasite. Otherwise, he would show the Mo couple the true meaning of ruthlessness. With this thought, Elder Nangong couldn't help but pat little Eggshell on the head. Have you been happy at school lately? Kai-er. Great-grandfather, I've made up with my two buddies. That's why Kai-er is happy every day. As long as you're happy, Elder Nangong said with a deeper meaning. As long as Kai-er is happy, I'm happy too. Seeing the grandfather and granddaughter getting closer, Nangong Quan felt both relieved and dangerous. He still hadn't let down his guard against Elder Nangong. He was afraid that Elder Nangong would one day use little Eggshell because of his hatred towards the Mo family. Su Yuran noticed the worry in Nangong Quan's eyes, so she comforted. You can't possibly tell little Eggshell to hide from grandfather, right? That would be too hurtful. But I still have to be cautious, Nangong Quan said as he held on to Su Yuran's hand. You won't understand how much I treasure this family that I've worked so hard to build. But the human heart is so hard to control. Su Yuran sighed and shook her head. I don't know when grandfather will truly let go. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. After hearing Nangong Quan's words, Su Yuran wanted to do something, but she realized there was nothing she could do. The next day, Elder Nangong offered to take little Eggshell to school. Su Yuran was naturally terrified because she was afraid that Elder Nangong would find out that little Eggshell was close to the Mo brothers. Grandfather, I can handle something like this. The office is free today anyway, so I have nothing to do. Kai-er, do you want great-grandfather to take you to school? Little Eggshell glanced at Su Yuran and then at Elder Nangong. In the end, she nodded her head. I like it. Mommy, just agree to it. Seeing this, Su Yuran had no choice but to nod her head. Little Eggshell was still so young, so Su Yuran didn't want her to be dragged into an adult's grudge. Hopefully, Elder Nangong simply wanted to take little Eggshell to school, and had no other motives. Nangong Quan understood that Su Yuran was worried, so he said, If you're worried, I can send someone to follow her. I'm worried that grandfather will find out about the Mo brothers. Don't think that way. Leave this matter to me. The grandfather and granddaughter duo knew what their parents were talking about, but they both winked at each other in unison. After all, little Eggshell had received permission from great-grandfather, so their parents were worrying for nothing. But they had no idea. After all, little Eggshell was still young. How could she know that she was being used? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.